All right. Good evening, distinguished guests, participants, speakers. So it is my pleasure to welcome all of you to this 2023 Nowa Omoigui Memorial Program. My name is Michael Ango. I'm a lawyer, tax consultant, and a partner at Anderson, Nigeria. It is my immense pleasure to host and moderate this session for a distinguished Nigerian, a celebrated world-class cardiologist, and one of the greatest historians we have had in Nigerian history, who has gone to be with the Lord. It is said that the good that men do is interred with their bones, while the evil they do lives, after them. I think it is the reverse for Dr. Omoigui. The good that he has done lives and resounds with us. And that is why today we have gathered here to celebrate him. Indeed, I'm sure that he would not have it any other way if he were to be here with us today. So once again, it is my honor, my privilege to welcome you all to this program. We have an impressive cast of speakers today. We understand that it is not the best period of the day, especially for our Muslim brothers who are fasting, but we understand and appreciate your sacrifices to be here with us today. And so we would like to move very quickly. We will start the program immediately, and we will start with a welcome address by the chairman of the Nowa Centre Advisory Board, another distinguished Nigerian, a retired military officer, Major General Serki Bello, who I did not have the privilege of serving under while I was in the military, but who I kept abreast of his career, a very distinguished career. He got to the top of his career as a military officer, and we're honored and happy to have you here this evening, sir. Ramadan Karim.
Thank you.
The floor, sir, to give us your welcome address. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ango. Let me start by saying that Assalamu alaikum. That is welcome to everybody who is on this forum so far now. And welcome the distinguished personalities who have joined us in this very important occasion of today. I welcome the distinguished personalities with us here today for the second year memorial program in honor of our brother, friend, and colleague, Dr. Nowa Omoigui. I have nothing more to say than what you have said about Nowa. I am Major General Serki Bello, recently appointed as the chairman advisory board, Nowa Centre. Nowa Centre for Advancement of Art History and Medicine. The composition of the advisory board is still in formation, and soon we'll complete the membership, and we'll definitely make sure that everybody must be on the board will be notified. But I just want to make sure that it is our resolve as members of the board to make sure that we make Nowa proud, aligned with excellence in all that he was associated with. As we are gathered here today to discuss Japa Syndrome and its effect on the nation tonight, I can't see any topic or issue more relevant for Nigeria to tackle the brain drain the nation is facing than this topic. And I believe that Nigeria will benefit, and all of us here will benefit from what we are going to hear from the speakers that we have gathered to talk to us on this occasion. Let me say, when I talk of Nowa, I talk with passion. I have never in my life met somebody with passion for what he does than Nowa. Nowa to me was a general, he was a field marshal. Let me make one confession that is going to shock many people here today. Of all the commands, of all the challenges I faced in my military career, Nowa was there to always assist me in the field. Though not wearing uniform, many times in the field, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., I consult him with certain challenges, and there was always an answer. But I believe that time in this center will give us more knowledge of Nowa as time emerges. And once more, I welcome all the participants in this very important lecture of today, or discussion of today, so that our nation benefits from this center. Thank you very much. My regards to all.
Thank you very much, General. Like a true general, you have spoken very concisely, straight to the point, and you've made your points, and we appreciate your welcome address. Before I continue, I would like to recognize the presence of Dr. Sota Omoigui, who, for all intents and purposes, is now the patriarch of the Omoigui family. He is the most senior member of the immediate family of late Dr. Nowa, and indeed, in the tradition of the family that has recorded so many firsts and so many achievements, notable achievements in Nigeria and globally, Dr. Sota Omoigui is, as I'm sure a number of us are aware here today, a co-author of the Nigerian national anthem. So every time you put your hand to your chest and you sing the Nigerian national anthem, you are indeed singing a tune that was drafted or authored, co-authored by Dr. Sota Omoigui. You're welcome here, sir. Good evening. Thank you so much for your presence. I'd also like to recognize the presence of other siblings and family members, and as time goes, if we do have time, we'll recognize them. As we go forward, I think it is important, especially for those of us who never interacted with Dr. Nowa while he was here with us, to give you a brief history, or would like to say just an overview of who he was. I was privileged to have met him on a number of occasions. And indeed, I remember the last time I met him, we spoke extensively about Nigerian military history. I went to a military school and I served in the military for a period of time. And I would say without any equivocation that there was no person more knowledgeable than him, at least that I had met or that I have met to date, about Nigerian military history. So very briefly, Dr. Nowa, full name Nowa Omoigui, was born on the 28th of March, 1959. He was a Nigerian military historian, a cardiologist by training, and also for many years a columnist and essayist for many Nigerian publications, focusing mostly on politics and governance in Nigeria. He can be described, of course, as you will all agree, as a precious talent who set records wherever he went. He was a preeminent interventional cardiologist in Columbia, South Carolina, and Nigeria's foremost military historian, and also a historian of the Benin Kingdom. He attended Corona Primary School in Lagos and St. Saviour's Primary School, and also St. Mary's Primary School, all in Lagos, Nigeria. He then went to Federal Government College, Warri, where he graduated with a distinction at the ripe age of 15. He set a record as the first in the history of the school and one of the first in West Africa to obtain a grade A1 in fine arts. In 1975, Dr. Nowa, after a year of pre-med at King's College in Lagos, gained admission to study medicine at Nigeria's premier medical school at the College of Medicine, University of Ibadan. In 1981, he graduated at the very top of his class as expected with distinction, and he delivered the valedictory speech. He did his mandatory youth service at the Brigade of Guards, where he gained new insights into many key events in Nigerian military history, and he set various new records by coordinating an air, sea, and land military disaster drill. He also received a national award from the then Nigerian president, Shehu Shagari, in 1983. Amongst many other academic distinctions, he had a master's degree in public health from the University of Illinois, USA, and he trained in cardiology at Stanford University and in interventional cardiology at the Cleveland Clinic, which is America's best heart center. Dr. Nowa made history in cardiology by being the first Nigerian immigrant to serve as chief of cardiology of a major university medical school in the United States, the University of South Carolina, Columbia. Dr. Nowa was a member of the South Carolina Military History Club and was an amateur gun and military aircraft enthusiast. If we were to recap all of Dr. Nowa's personal achievements, we would be here until probably next week. So ladies and gentlemen, as we're pressed for time, I would like to then introduce our first speaker of the day and then proceed to request that she gives us her intervention, as she has asked that she be allowed to leave once she's able to give her intervention, and we appreciate her presence here today. Our first speaker of the day is, of course, a person known to us popularly as Abike Dabiri, full name Abike Kafayat Oluwatoyin Dabiri-Erewa, a recipient of a National Honor OON. She's a politician, a journalist, and a public officer who has dedicated her career to advocating for the rights and welfare of Nigerians, both at home and in Nigeria. She has had a distinguished public service career and also ventured into partisan politics, where she was elected to the Nigerian House of Representatives in 2003 and served for a consecutive 3-term tenure. During her time in the Nigerian House of Representatives, she was a vocal advocate for women's rights and the rights of minorities, and she worked to promote policies that will improve the lives of all Nigerians. In 2018, in recognition of all her efforts in protecting Nigerians in the diaspora, Dabiri-Erewa was appointed the chairman and CEO of the Nigerian Diaspora Commission, which is a government agency that is tasked with promoting and protecting the interests of Nigerians living abroad. In her role, she has worked tirelessly to promote the interests of Nigerians, both at home and in diaspora, to ensure that their contributions to the Nigerian economy and society are recognized and supported. Under her leadership, the Nigerian Diaspora Commission has implemented several initiatives to promote the integration of Nigerians overseas, including the establishment of a database of Nigerians in the diaspora. I'm sure those of us who are either on Twitter or any of the social media platforms will know that from time to time, Mrs. Abike Dabiri is called upon to intervene, and she does intervene with success severally when Nigerians have challenges overseas. I don't know whether to refer to her as honorable, since she was once a member of the House of Reps, but you're welcome here this evening, Ma, and we'll please yield the floor to you to give us your intervention for 10 to 15 minutes. You're welcome, Ma. Okay, I think while we confirm presence here, we would just run all right. We will run through the other speakers and give her some time to join. Otherwise, we'll continue with the program as it were. So I will just quickly give us a profile of the other speakers so that we don't have to do it once, so that we can do it once and for all. And then once we get into the program itself, we don't have to pause to introduce anyone. Our second speaker of the day is Mr. Aigbeze Uhimwen. I hope I got that right. Forgive me, sir. Who is a qualified and highly experienced migration social expert. He's a lawyer, a certified integration professional, and an administrator with over 15 years of hands-on experience in humanitarian and development aid programs. He managed a multidisciplinary and cross-disciplinary department for 5 years, and his role includes supervision and provision of technical guidance in the implementation of migration management and stakeholder coordination programs. He's also experienced in liaison with government diplomatic authorities in the private as well as public sectors, nationally and internationally. He is also highly skilled in planning, development, effective implementation and management of migration-related programs. And he has worked with a number of donor agencies, including the DFID, the UKHO, the IDF, amongst others. You're welcome here, sir. Our third speaker is Dr. Egbe Dawodu, who is also a highly respected medical professional and health policy expert with over 20 years of experience in Nigeria and the United States. She's a practicing physician in Houston, Texas, where she serves as the medical director of the sleep center at the Houston Methodist Hospital. She's also an assistant professor of clinical medicine at the Weill Cornell Medical College in New York City. Dr. Dawodu holds multiple degrees, including a Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery, MBBS from the University of Lagos, an MBA from the University of Houston, and a Master of Science in Health Services Research from the University of Texas School of Public Health. She's also a member of the Royal College of Physicians in the United Kingdom. Doctor, if I had known that you are a sleep specialist, I would have come to you for my sleep apnea tests instead of going all the way to the United States. But you're welcome here this evening. The next person is another person who I have met and interacted with, a distinguished Nigerian, Professor Julius Ihonvbere. He's a member of the National House of Representatives. He's a scholar, an educationist, and a politician. Prof is a professor of political science and international relations and has held various academic positions in Nigeria and overseas. He has also served, as chairman of the House Committee on Education at the Federal House of Representatives. As an expert in political science and education, Professor today will bring to us extensive knowledge and experience in the area of migration and brain drain. He has written various academic papers on governance, democracy, and development in Nigeria. Prof was at one time a special advisor to the president, I think on implementation and project management. Prof's academic works has focused on the complex dynamics of migration and its impact on the Nigerian economy and society. He has written extensively on the challenges facing Nigeria's education system and the need for policies that address the brain drain phenomenon. We also have Dr. Sota Omoigui, who had introduced to us previously as one of our speakers. He is also a physician, an author and speaker with over 25 years of experience in healthcare. He graduated from the University of Lagos College of Medicine and went on to complete his residency in internal medicine at Yale University School of Medicine. He has completed fellowships in anesthesiology and pain management at the University of California, San Francisco. He's an expert in pain management and has published numerous papers and articles on the subject. He's the author of The Art of Medicine, Healing and the Limits of Technology, a book that explores the role of compassion and empathy in healthcare. Anyone who has met Dr. Sota will know that he does indeed, exemplify empathy. Dr. Omoigui has been a vocal advocate for healthcare reform in Nigeria, where he has served as visiting professor at the University of Lagos College of Medicine and worked with various organizations to improve the quality of healthcare. He has also been involved in initiatives aimed at reducing the impact of brain drain on Nigeria's healthcare system, including the establishment of the Nigerian Health Professionals in Diaspora organization. As I mentioned earlier on, he is a co-author of the Nigerian National Anthem. Our sixth speaker is, of course, someone who is known to us, especially those of us involved in politics in Nigeria. He is Mr. Omoleye Sowore. In fact, he is, a case of study, because while we are here to discuss the Japa Syndrome, about those who are leaving Nigeria into the diaspora, he's one of those Nigerians who left the diaspora to come back to Nigeria. And I guess for some reasons, he's unable to go back to the diaspora. He's a journalist, a human rights activist, and the founder of Sahara Reporters, an online news agency that focuses on good governance and exposing corruption and human rights abuses in Nigeria. He is a prominent advocate for social and political reform in Nigeria and has been a very, very vocal critic of the Nigerian government's economic policies and their impact on the country's workforce. His work has brought attention to the issue of brain drain in Nigeria, and in order to implement his policies and his beliefs, Mr. Sowore has actually run for the office of president twice, in 2019 and of course recently in 2023. Our next speaker is Miss Uhimwen Bodari. She is a Nigerian business strategist, a human resources expert, and public speaker. She is the founder of the Poised Graduate Academy, a training and consulting firm that helps individuals and organizations improve their skills and performance. Ms. Dari has extensive experience in the field of human resources and workforce development and has worked with very numerous organizations. She has also implemented several initiatives, one of which is the Poised Graduate Empowerment Program, which provides training and resources to help young graduates develop the skills they need to succeed in the workforce. She currently oversees the Edo Jobs Initiative and the Edo State Skills Development Agency, which coordinates efforts and implements programs to fulfill the promise of the current governor of Edo State, Mr. Godwin Obaseki, to create 200,000 jobs in 4 years. With her team, she has implemented innovative projects, which provide the supply of highly skilled talent in Edo State. She has overseen the setup and running of Edo Innovates, an innovation cluster that is upskilling youth and leveraging on technology to create jobs and incubate businesses in Edo State. She has also, done a lot to tackle unemployment in Edo State as the Senior Special Assistant to the Governor on Skills Development and Jobs, which of course sought her appointment as the Managing Director of Edo State Skills Development Agency. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a brief rundown of our speakers. If I were to, give you a full profile of each of our speakers today, we probably would not be able to to move on to the program. I'm also told that we have here Dr. Charles Edosomwan, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. You're welcome here, sir. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we need to move very quickly so that we can begin to discuss the issues at hand. Based on our program, I would call upon our first speaker this evening to give us, his or her perspective on the issue that we have gathered here to discuss today, which is the issue of the Japa Syndrome and its effect on the nation. For those of us who are not Yoruba speaking, Japa is a Yoruba word, which means to flee. But of course, in popular usage today, Japa simply means those who have taken the conscious decision to leave the shores of Nigeria to go and seek for greener pastures outside Nigeria. While I was living in Lagos, I recall a sermon that Pastor Paul Adefarasin gave, and he said there was nothing like the color greener. That when he hears people say that the grass is greener on the other side, he usually checks his dictionary, has never seen the color greener. Well, this is what we're here to discuss today. Is there really a greener pasture out there? Or, are Nigerians forced by circumstances within our shores to then decide, to go out there to seek for, better opportunities and to better their lives? So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to ask Mr. Omoleye Sowore to be our first speaker for the day, and we yield the floor to him here. You're welcome, sir. You have 15 minutes, no, actually 10 minutes, sir, to make your intervention. Please proceed, sir.
Thank you very much. I thought that being the sixth person introduced, I had to wait for everybody else before it was my turn. But I'm going to try and be very direct and laconic. Let me thank the organizers of today's event and some of the faces or faces I've seen and the ones I haven't seen. Julius, Ihonvbere, who, when I was arriving in the US, was also returning back to Nigeria. So I'm not the first person to return from Japa. A lot of people have returned in search of greener pastures. But what is important is to say quickly that I met Nowa Omoigui through Professor Bolaji Aluko, who I wish was here today. He knew him like the back of his hand. And one of the ways we used to interact with ourselves in diaspora wasn't physical meeting. It was in those days through Yahoo groups, And one of the Yahoo groups I belonged to and he belonged to and Professor Bolaji Aluko belonged to, I would say to you, was a very, very toxic one. It was a place where people fought over everything, to the point that one day I was wondering what the value of the Yahoo groups were, if it is all about fights, toxicity, and just how bad we feel about ourselves. At a point, I did ask Professor Aluko why anybody's in any of these groups, and he told me, and this is true life story, he said, this is a place you can also learn from. I think
just a moment, sir. Please, can we all mute our microphones, please? All right, apologies, please continue.
So Bolaji Aluko told me about Nosa. He said, this is one of the most brilliant persons in Nigeria. He's in the group. to make it short, some of the groups that I belong to led to lawsuits against ourselves. It led people to sending private investigators to dig into people's background. It led some people, I would also say, I think there was a guy who died as a result of a lawsuit because he was sued for libel over conversations that were happening in Yahoo groups. I don't remember the exact name of the Yahoo groups that led to this. But having said that, it is important that we discuss Japa because it has become another phenomenon. And there are many times that people left Nigeria to travel abroad. There were political undertones. There were economic undertones. I think during the structural adjustment programs and the dislocation to Nigerian economy, a lot of people left in the late 70s, 80s, and the political crisis of 1993 led a lot of people to leave Nigeria in the 90s. And after the 90s, then they brought the green card lotteries, and a lot of people left Nigeria just because they won the green card lottery. There's always a reason why people leave Nigeria. And this time around, there are multiple reasons why people leave Nigeria. Some people leave Nigeria for the sake of living. Some people leave Nigeria in anticipation of Nigeria not working. Some people leave Nigeria in search of greener pastures. But what is central to all of this is that when you leave Nigeria, and that's the reason why I introduced to you my experience with Niger politics, as we used to call it, the Yahoo group, is that when people leave Nigeria, there's always a reason not to leave. And these chat groups, discussion groups, were part and parcel of the reason why when people leave Nigeria, Nigeria is like what this musician sang about. Nigeria is like Hotel California. It's like, you check in, you check out, but you can't leave. That is what the chat groups taught me. People are always looking for a Nigeria that works, that they can come back to. Especially when you are now confronted with economic realities that, after all, the place you are running to did not possess the magic wand that you were looking for. Some of us were lucky. Some of us were lucky that we arrived there. We found our niches. We created platforms. We taught in universities. We were able to find our level because some people had also prepared the place for us. But a lot of people that left, including those who were given green cards, they were not given instruction manuals that America is not what it was when they were leaving. Some people that left as medical doctors did not know that when they arrived in the US or Europe, their first job is not going to be a medical doctor job that you have to write exam. The lawyers that left did not know that the law they knew about doesn't work anywhere else. So I think it then becomes compelling back. Also discover that cultural misfit. I met there. You can wake up from Lagos to go to Benin City, and once that you are coming, you can knock his gate and say, please tell Professor Ihonvbere that my name is Sowore. They will gladly let you in. You will eat. You can sleep there for as long as you want. But in America, you just can't visit Ihonvbere if you don't call Ihonvbere in advance that you are coming, because the culture does not permit that. When I first arrived in America, somebody said, let's go have lunch. I went with him to a restaurant in Washington, D.C. It's called Booker. I ate. When it was time to pay the bills, he said, we have to split it. I said, you invited me to lunch. I don't have to pay. He said, no, it doesn't work like that. And he was an African like me. So these are cultural dislocations that you get into. And then there's the political interest that you have, that who governs your country? How do I have political influence in Nigeria? How do I decide the next president of Nigeria? Primarily because you want to return back home, because it's not the America you came to is not the America you saw on CNN. The America you came to is not the one you saw on MTV, the music videos you saw. The Black people you thought were doing well are not doing well. They're not doing well because America doesn't allow them to do well. And when you arrive at first, somebody will tell you that, oh, you Africans are better than the Blacks. So they condition you to hate the Blacks, that they don't want to work, they're stubborn, they're always complaining and whining. But the reason why they prefer you to a Black person is because you don't have rights. Or if you do so, you don't care about them. For instance, one day, a Black guy that I was working with in a tire store was angry and he left in the afternoon, quit his job. I asked the guy who was our supervisor, why did he leave? He said, oh, I played with him that I call him a nigger. I said, is that the reason why he left? I said, you can call me a nigger as many times as you want. I'm not going to leave this job because my life and the life of my family at home depends on Western Union. So my self-worth and dignity doesn't matter as long as I'm getting paid. But an average African American who has a history of slavery is different from me. And sometimes you find Africans like yourself repeating the same thing, that Americans are lazy, they don't want to work. Until you now work for a while and you discover that they are not lazy, the system has a glass ceiling beyond which you can't progress. And anybody who has a little bit of consciousness, when I make consciousness, and I keep going back to Julius Ihonvbere because we were very good friends in the US before he disappeared on me, would understand what the African Americans are going through, the reason why they reject being maltreated. Because you discover as an African, after you have arrived, bought that car that you want to buy, married the ladies that you thought were great, and things don't turn out very well, you start understanding why African Americans fight against everything. But I want to focus very quickly on why I returned home. My return back to Nigeria was both planned and accidental. It was planned because it was political. I'm one of the angriest people in diaspora against the system that is at home. And it was part of why I joined it was primarily part of the reason why I started Sahara Reporters as well. And I wanted to find out why Abike Dabiri didn't come before me. I hope she's not afraid that I'm here. Me and her are friends in some ways, but the APC people are always too sensitive when they see opposition in these groups. But that's aside. And when it got to a point, like every other person in diaspora.
Apologies, sir, you have 2 minutes.
Yes,
2 minutes more,
to go. We tried our hands on everything and we kept convincing ourselves that until we come home, we can't change anything. But when I got home, I discovered the same thing that we Africans used to feel when we arrived in the US, that African Americans are lazy. At home as well, our brothers and sisters don't also like diasporans as much as we think. They can't stand us. And the reason they can't stand us is not because they hate us as brothers. Diasporans behave as if they are God because they send money home. Diasporans don't really connect with the issues as much as we think. They connect with their self-worth. They connect with the fact that everybody relies on them for money. And as they mistake that for relying on them for opinions as to how to govern the country. It was the first lesson I learned. And secondly, trust me, nobody wants you back here because your coming back is a burden to those who used to rely for survival. So the moment you arrive, it changes the dynamics. It's like you used to help before. Now you are here to share the little we have. I don't know if this is pervasive across board. But what I'll say finally, because of time, is that the concept of Japa is a temporary process for anybody who is Japaing. It is an illusion that the moment you Japa, you will make it. It's not true. I'm not saying people will not make it, but the best place to be, and I'm saying this, And I'm saying it as somebody who has experienced rejection, mistreatment. I've been imprisoned. I have been shot at by my home government and my country people. I've been spat at by people that you and I fight for. But there's nowhere like home. And when I say nowhere like home, I'm not repeating those, languages or concept that, it's not a literature or poetry. The fact is that no one of us had anywhere to japa to if people didn't make sacrifices that made those places livable, honorable, and give people self-worth. What we must ask is, when we japa, what are we going for? And for how long are those things sustainable? For how long would you be able to get a nice car, you understand, with car notes? For how long can you own a house in a country where you can't own anything regardless of how you are good at paying your bills? For how long can you sustain that family that you built there or you took there? For how long can you even keep your marriage if you took one from here or you took one from there, if there is no understanding of why you are there and how long you want to be there and what you are there to achieve? Otherwise, like everybody who left home, will come back in two ways, either in one piece or in several pieces, or not returning at all. And I opted to return because I don't want to come back in any other piece than the piece that I left. And I don't actually want to be buried in a place that is colder than Nigeria, and especially a place where my burial ground may never be known. It's possible that you can also be buried in Nigeria and your burial ground would not be known, but at least it will be warm underground when I buried. That's how best I can describe my return home. I'm sure 15 minutes can't do justice to it, but I want to again appreciate your bringing me on this platform today to discuss Nowa. I want to say lastly that I never met him in person, but based on what I know about him and who I knew were associated with him, including everybody that I've seen here, a lot of you are my friends, I'm proud to say that he lived a great life. And I hope, I actually wish that he came back before he left. I'm sure he would have been a better addition to what we are looking for here, and a country that we can all sit down, come around, and build together. Thank you once again for bringing me.
Thank you very much.
Pleasant deliberation for today. And
thank you very
Professor
much.
Ihonvbere, it's good to see you, and I hope we'll talk again very soon.
All right. So Mr. Sowore, thank you so much.
Certainly.
Yeah, I would plead with you to please remain in the house. Let me use something that connects you and I.
I'll be around for a bit, yeah.
So that I can keep you here. We're alumni of Columbia University, and I didn't want to disclose that because I wanted to first listen to you speak. But having heard you speak, now I believe you went to Columbia University. So please stay in the house. You've said some very important things that I would like to interrogate you on. You talked about Western Union, and I think I would like to interrogate you more on Western Union. That is the economics of Japa. When somebody leaves and is able to send you a note, one note that translates into 74 or 75,000 of your own notes. I think it's a very important thing. So I'd like to interrogate you on that. You've also said, people can leave Nigeria physically, but they never leave mentally. I would also like to interrogate you further on that. And also the concept of the glass ceiling. We've had that a lot. Some people will say to you, but Obama has become president of the United States, a Kenyan, quote and unquote. So we would like to interrogate you on that. So please stay in the house. We'll come back to you. Next speaker is a man who you've said is your friend. So we'll yield the floor to him. I've also met him, like I said, we've had some interactions in Rwanda, if you recall, during a training session for the Nigerian House of Representatives. So, Prof, it is my pleasure to invite you to please, make your intervention. We'll allocate you 10 to 15 minutes too, and we'll be glad if you can use 10 minutes. So you're welcome, Professor. Sir.
Well, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, Prof, I can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Great. And let me say hello to Sowore and commend him for his courage and commitment to continuing the struggle for a better Nigeria. I think coming in after Sowore is very apt because I cannot just add footnotes to some of the very salient points he made that I agree with. First, I do agree that the whole notion of Japa that we're talking about is largely an illusion, and I agree that it is temporary. A lot of it is a response to the content and context of our politics, governance, and deployment of power and resources. And those who are frustrated with it and who have opportunities to go elsewhere simply decide to move elsewhere. I believe that when things get better, many will return and contribute to national growth and development. The other issue is that I also do agree with him that many of those who live here, they are in two categories, broad categories. There could be subcategories. First, those who are professionally qualified, who have networks out there, either family networks or some other relationships. And when they move across, they move in with ease. When I was forced to leave Nigeria, I didn't leave on my own volition. I was accused of writing a coup brokers, which I didn't do. And by the time I got there, I started work almost immediately because I simply went back to my old university. So there are people like that. You have a job before you leave, or when you get there, your professional skills, your networks make it easy for you to settle in and begin to live well, relatively. And those who just leave because they want to live, particularly those that go through the Libyan and other North African Mediterranean Sea route. Those ones, if they don't die or get killed in Libya before they manage to cross, they see hell, they see what we may call pepper before they begin to enjoy what Europe is all about. They suffer on the indignities, racism, you name it, abuse, deprivation of rights and so on. So there are two categories. One category I would say is the comfortable category. The second is the non-comfortable, or if you like, uncomfortable categories that go. Two is that many of our people don't even know what they are getting into. They really do believe, like you already described, that what you see on MTV and in the Westerns and in the American movies, it's America. It is when they get there, they discover you cannot even leave your job to say your wife is going to have a baby. Yeah, you can go, but you lose money immediately. It is when they get there, they discover that going to next door to ask your neighbor for salt and pepper because the soup you are making, you forgot to buy salt. It doesn't work like that. It is when they get there, they discover that even crossing the street in certain areas, you get a ticket or packet if you have a car, and so on and so forth. So I do think that to understand this syndrome properly, why it has increased somewhat, we need to understand the contradictions, the negative coalitions, and the way in which power balances have worked in the country in the last decade or so. Somebody who is carefully comfortable in Nigeria will not just wake up tomorrow, buy a ticket and say, I'm relocating to South Africa or to India or anywhere. They go anywhere but Nigeria. I think a lot of those who go do so in clear response to very serious economic dislocations in their lives and frustrations with bad, very primitive public services like supply of power, bad roads, water. You practically run your own local government as a human being in Nigeria with your own borehole, your own high fence. You can even turn your house into a sort of prison, all just trying to live fairly carefully. So I believe that it is that area that we need to look at so we know the impact on the nation. When people come to recruit our doctors and government say, oh, it's a bad thing, don't go. Or somebody proposes a bill, oh, they must work for 5 years before they can go anywhere. These are all indications of dislocations in the system. And even when the central bank is always happy, along with the World Bank, to tell us that, oh, the diaspora remittances increased to within 19.2 billion in 2022. Yeah, that's a lot of money coming in, but it is not organized inflow, and a lot of it hardly go into productive sectors of the economy. Else we'll be better than where we are now. And I'm sure it's much more than that, because they're looking at formal remittances. The informal remittances may be double that, but they don't run them through the banking system, and they don't circulate in the usual transactions, regular transactions. So what are some of the reasons why people want to Japa, why they want to leave Nigeria? Let me just list a few that I just thought of. I said, well, I have talked about decaying institutions. I have people who have come here, set up hospitals, and after 2 or 3 years, they closed the hospital and went back. Somebody who came from Houston. First, robbers came in and stole all his materials. The police wouldn't come there. The workers stole most of the others. They stole the drugs in the hospital. He reported to the police and nothing happened, and so on and so forth. So people who come in get frustrated. Those who are here also get frustrated. You set up a business here, like a very beautiful hotel. If you're not there every day, they will win it for you within a year. And you find that frustration. Some people say, look, I have tried. I've made my contribution. Let me go elsewhere. Those who are frustrated with insecurity, I mean, it's all over the country because of the poor management of the situation when this problem started. Now it has spread all to every nook and corner. There are agitations, there are militant bandit groups. In fact, you don't even find armed robbers again. They've all become bandits because it's easier to kidnap somebody and get money. That again has scared very many people living here and those who came back to return or something else. You also find the question of unemployment. Whatever they say about the figures, I know there's an army of unemployed persons out there. If you have at least 10.5 million out of school children who should be in school, we're not talking of those not in school. That is those who were in school but dropped out because they couldn't pay. And then you add the Almajiri children who are in school but not the kind of school we're thinking they should be attended or should be reformed. Then you know that we have close to 30 million children out of school. There's an army, recruits for bandits, armed robbers, and all kinds of criminals and agitators. And there are people who look at this and say, there is something wrong with the future. And I don't think I want to be part of it. Political uncertainty, you talk about corruption in the system, you talk about the dislocation in the educational sector. This affects many of our young people, and I've met many of them who say, okay, look, I've been in this university 7 years and doesn't look like I've graduated. So let me go to Ghana, or let me go to even Cameroon, let me go to South Africa, and know that the school calendar will be straightforward. There will be no ASU strike of 1 year, 2 years. Again, all of these are symptoms of structural dislocations. And unless we address those dislocations, there is no way we're going to be able to address this problem. Many Nigerians are ready to pay whatever it takes to get out of Nigeria in the belief that life will be better out there. Like I said, in 1990, I was forced to go into self-exile. And I couldn't come back in here until Abacha died. Not because I killed or stole money, but the kind of repressive governance we had. You don't stand a chance against a repressive government, an authoritarian system. And if you also are going against one in which there are questions about the independence of the judiciary and the neutrality of the security agencies, you also are in big problem. And if you have skills to sell elsewhere, what are you still waiting for? Is it after they sing your obituary and give you 6 feet somewhere? So for many people, it is just frustrations, the dislocations in the system, poor leadership, uncertainty about the present and the future, bad experiences with the government, the security, the banking system. This is a country where you can make your money legitimately and somebody can frame you and take everything from you. And there is nothing you can do about it. So I think it's a combination of this. So it means that the struggle of people like Sowore and even some of the work that Nowa stood for while he was alive, and some of the things Ifeko herself, though not a politician, has also tried to clean up even the Federal Inland Revenue Service where she was there. Is how do we produce a kind of leadership that is responsible, disciplined, focused, accountable, and capable of redirecting and repositioning Nigeria for greatness? How do we ensure that impunity and executive lawlessness are checked? How do we check corruption where the funds meant for water, roads, school, etc. are simply embezzled? Where in 2023, we have children sitting on the floor and you have schools with one teacher. How do we cure all of that? It's a country that can drive you mad if you are not careful. But I think there are those who have stood up. Look, finally, let me try to round up. There was a time in this country where university students had scholarships. If you were in education, it was automatic scholarships because the government wanted to produce teachers. They had state bursaries. There was federal loan. There was Commonwealth scholarships. Today, even the Commonwealth scholarship, you don't even know how to recruit those who benefit from it. All these things have disappeared. A few universities have work on campus for students. There are universities that are like prisons. Today, once you enter, you never come out. Everything you want to buy is in there. Most of those outlets are owned by the university. So the little money you bring into campus or that are sent to you, they also extract it for you, mopping up the surpluses just to enrich themselves. So there are contradictions, deep contradictions. Look at the way political leaders behave. Look at presidential candidates, the way they speak to one another. Look at the behavior of some of our governors. Look at some of our ministers. There are ministers in this government that we don't even know are there. We've never seen them until you heard them say one word. No communication with the public, So these deep contradictions, unless we resolve them, we restructure our nation, we restructure our politics, we reposition our philosophy and ideology to give people hope for the future and organize the presence in which they believe they can draw progress, they can draw comfort, they can draw free and fair environment for competition. Look at our political parties. How many of them are performing one function of political parties? Read Robert Dahl, political parties. You can Google it. The functions are there. They are not performing it. They are gatekeepers in the political parties. No matter what idea. In fact, the more you have ideas, the more they don't want you. Look at people competing for it and wanting to buy votes, $1 million per vote. Is that not insane? How are you going to make that kind of money except looting that system you want to take over? So I believe that the Japa Syndrome is a reaction and a legitimate reaction to frustrations, lack of opportunities, closed political spaces, impunity, lawlessness, and distrust for the leadership. If you trust your leaders and you believe they truly stand for you, they represent you, you can get justice in the system. You don't want to run, you fight. You say, okay, the law court is the bastion of the common man. But is that true in Nigeria? It is not. The police is your best friend, really, in this country. Pray you don't have any reason to go to the police station. And even when the cost is so glaring, it becomes your own problem. You have to pay to get yourself out of a problem you went to report to the police. So I think this is a good topic, and I'm happy it has been brought up for conversation here. And I do believe that if we do not restructure, rebuild, purge, and reconstitute our institutions to deliver public good for public service, for the common good in this country, more and more people will continue to live. And unfortunately, most will suffer when they get there.
Prof, I'm sure if we allow you, you turn this into a lecture series. So,
well,
thank you so much.
Thank you.
But Prof, before I move on to the next speaker, I'll put you on the spot.
Yes.
Are you not a member of the political class in Nigeria?
I am. I am a member of the political class.
Yes. And
I did contest election, and I won. and
Yes.
go and check my records. Nobody ever before me in my constituency can match it. I put the money where the people.
Not yet, Prof. We have not gotten there. We'll get there, Prof.
I'm going there quickly. So before you talk of being
No,
part
I'm
of
talking in terms of the contradictions you've mentioned in the system and the society.
Yes.
Prof, even the way you went to the US is different from the way Husseini, Hassana, who have to go through Libya. You could afford a ticket and you boarded a flight, I presume. Although I know that in those days, I was still young, but I knew you people had the Seme, Cotonou routes. I don't know if you are willing to disclose the routes you took to us now. But what I'm saying is that this contradiction, does it not also reflect the discrepancies in economic status? If I want to go to the US today, I will go and buy a British Airways or Lufthansa or Air France. But if my cousin or my distant relative in the village wants to go today, he or she would then have to go through Kano. They will go to Niger, from Niger, Malaville, from Malaville, But we'll come back to you, Prof. You've mentioned a number of things.
Yeah, that's why I said there were two categories. Those that were comfortable, who have skills to sell.
We'll come back certainly to you, Prof. We'll certainly come back to you. There are a number of things you said we would like to interrogate you further, especially we would like to hear your perspectives on the bill that wants to restrict the migration of doctors, until after they've served 5 years. And so I think it would also be a good point for us to then bring in a doctor at this point, who happens to be one of my clients. And, I didn't know she was a sleep specialist. Now that I know, I might consult her for treatment of my sleep apnea. Dr. Egbe Dawodu, of the another group. She's a diasporan, a successful one at that. So maybe she would also give us some perspective that Prof and Mr. Sowore have not yet given us. Doctor, please speak to us for 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here for several reasons. One, professionally, as you have mentioned, and by the way, I'm not a sleep specialist. I trained in endocrinology, but went to business school. But also because Nowa was a personal friend. He was my big brother. I don't remember not knowing him, both also a professional mentor on the medical side, and also introduced to my husband. He introduced us. So I'm very happy to be here from a personal perspective. But it's been very interesting listening to both Mr. Sowore and Dr. Julius. So I'm going to have a slightly different perspective. Because one of the things I'm going to say is that there has been a lot of focus on the conversations in Nigeria. We also look at Nigeria in the world as a whole. There is the push from Nigeria, but there is definitely an aggressive pull from the world. And so that in that context, I think I would bring a slightly different perspective. And the issue of brain drain, extremely old. Because of this, my colleagues, and I want to say shout out to both Tite and Dr. Mamizo, who helped me prepare this. The first major brain drain was the Byzantine Empire to Renaissance Italy and the Islamic world. It's happened. The UK, when I was studying in Oxford, whole labs were moving from the UK to America. So what's happening in Nigeria is not unusual. And many other countries have had it. And for this, I'm focusing on doctors, on health folks. One of the big issues behind the health brain drain. One of the big issues behind the health brain drain is the fact that there is a global healthcare shortage. I mean, if you look either the US, and I think this we're looking at US, the US have a 30,000 nurse, or if you look at physicians, they're suggesting 124, between 40 to up to 124,000 physicians, in the US. You look at the UK, it's the same thing. And then you look at the aging population. I was looking before we spoke today at all the countries that have larger populations than Nigeria. India, so I think yesterday, India surpassed China because China has now a declining growth. And when you have a declining growth, you have less young people to look after old people. You have less young people to train for things. And when you talk about the Japan, for example, look at technology. Some of the innovations, the major innovations in Nigeria have come from youth, whether it's technology or Nollywood or Afrobeats, where we are at world class, you know, and these are things that have happened in spite of the government, in spite of the institutions the earlier speakers spoke about. So I think we really need to. Oh, somebody needs to be on mute. And so this whole idea of, and in healthcare in particular, this aging population, the COVID and early retirement, in many Western countries, many doctors who were over 55 retired, you know. So what did you have? And especially in the UK, because of the Brexit, you know, you had 4,000 fewer European doctors. So what did the UK do? Of course, they went to the usual folks, the Anglophone folks. Nigeria is obviously one of them. So there is the push, but there's definitely the pull. And that's why, for example, the law of, you know, keeping people for 5 years, I'm not sure it makes sense, because I think our greatest contribution, one of our biggest advantages is the world. This I showed was a population pyramid. Nigeria's population is typical, you know, many young people, very old people. Look at Japan. Look at how few young people. Look at how many old people. That is Japan. That is Italy. That is UK. That's what their population pyramid looks like. And as long as you have that, you're going to have people sucking people. These are the top 4 countries or 5 countries that were exporting nurses to the UK over the last couple of years. Nigeria is this little green, is this green one. There are only 16 million Zimbabweans. Look at them, 913 nurses. Philippines is half our population, 100 million, 563 nurses. So what I'm trying to say is that at least in healthcare, there is a global pool. And so when our policymakers and the political class, like my less speakers, think at least in healthcare, you have to think about what's happening elsewhere and what can we do differently about our folks. We have been carrying surveys over the last 5 or 8 years on what people within 5 years of graduation of Nigeria, what do they want to do? At this point, 90% of them say they would like to walk out of Nigeria. 90% of people you're training, and many of them government funded. People who are paying privately in private education, I don't think, I mean, that's a personal choice, you know. And so I really think that when you look at the numbers and when you look at the pool, and the pool for healthcare workers is basically Anglophone. I work in Francophone countries. I also work in Nigeria, so not totally whatever. When you look at Francophone, they don't have as much issue. But on Anglophone, Nigeria, UK, Canada, Middle East, you know, everybody is looking for Anglophone healthcare workers. You know, this is the UK. Look at how it is accelerating. It was cheaper to do PLAB than to do the primaries of surgery medicine in Nigeria. How can Nigeria have a situation where it is cheaper to do an international exam than to do primaries or having enough places for people to train? With all this stuff, all this money we spent, we really don't get very much for what we spend on health, for all the reasons Prof mentioned: school, I mean, water, basic stuff. Our children are not vaccinated. Look at what we're getting, you know. Look at, compared to other countries close to us, our outcomes are really not good, you know. Look at what we spend. Look at what the government spends. In Nigeria, most of the money comes from the private sector. When we talked about the money coming from remittances, Nigeria's government budget on healthcare is about $5 billion or $6 billion. You're saying 20 billion is coming from outside. Look at what we are spending on healthcare. And so for me, this whole, at least for healthcare, and I mean, the whole issue of the macroeconomics and what you think, you really need to think, it gives us an opportunity to think innovatively. What do we do about healthcare? What do we do that you can have other people in other countries, in the US, because they don't have enough doctors, the role of the nurses, the role of nurse practitioners have changed. You get your vaccines at the pharmacy, you know, you disrupt the way you think. We are continuing to have a system that's based on what the British left for us in 1960. Even the British don't have that kind of system, and we certainly cannot afford it. So we certainly need to look at things differently. We basically train people. The nurses now have insisted that all the nurses should be Nigerian, all the nurses in Nigeria should be graduates. Why? So that they're better trained, so they can work in the US and the UK. Is that the reason? We need to think innovatively about what is good for a country. What do people need? We Many people don't have water. Only 39% have water. If you have water, good air, feeding the children well, our infant mortality rate will decline even before you have, and vaccination, even before you have doctors touch them. So I really think that there are two parts to this issue. There's the issue you've said internally, but there's the issue we said, and I think at least in healthcare, let us be innovative. We have seen disruption in finance. We have seen disruption in Nollywood. Today, people who migrate today can watch Nollywood on Netflix. We have seen disruption in the music industry. Let us see disruption in healthcare. We have a pharmaceutical industry that supplies less than 10% of what we need. These are places that can keep healthcare workers. Look at health technology. All the Nigerian doctors today who I know are involved in health technology do not japa anywhere. They stay in Nigeria. What are we doing for our students today to take advantage of the new things that are driving the economy in Nigeria? Which legacy university has music studies and, even health? No healthcare management. Let's professionalize it. Which university teaches healthcare management so you can have better managed hospitals and better trained doctors who want to stay? It's one thing to talk about jackpine, and it's another thing is what we do inside. But what we do inside is also we need to recognize what is happening outside. Outside, we have one thing the world wants. We have young people. We are the largest country with a young population. How do we do that? So that even when people go, they don't go in the second class. They don't go through Libya. They don't go through all those places. The US has just said, if you arrive with a visa on a plane, you can apply for a job. If you come in through a strange road, you will always be an illegal immigrant. So we need to think differently. We need to think widely. We need to get people from some of these areas, outside urban areas, going to medical school, going to nursing school, more likely to go back to help their people in the villages. It shouldn't only be about urban Nigerians. So for me, like I said, it's really important that we really understand our youth and many of the issues, the crime, the robbery, the stuff, it's all about youth. When you look at how many young people you have, look at the unemployment we have, until we address some of those issues innovatively, not what the British were doing in 1960, not what people learned in school in 1970. Those days have gone. Those days have gone. Healthcare. How many of the medical schools are using the digitalization or telecare? You have Nigerian diaspora, top universities all over the world. How are they connected? How are they revitalizing our education? How are we preparing our medical students today to be ready for a world with AI and digital technology? Yet, we have some of the most advanced technology in the world. People are buying Nigerian-made technology for billions, or at least we have a couple of unicorns on the technology side. How is that affecting the health sector? So I really do hear people, but we really need to think about things differently. It's not just about us, but it's also about what is happening in the world around us. Thanks very much. Oh, and by the way, other countries have been where we have been, and it's possible to do it. Poland, Greece, Iceland, other people have done it before. We can do it, and we did it before. It's funny people talk about Jack Pine in the old days, Andrew, and anybody on this call who remembers Andrew aging themselves. Thanks very much.
Doctor, I think if I refer to you as professor now, I will not be out of place. Thank you very much. We really appreciate the fact that you took time to put together the slides, and a few participants have asked if your slides can be available. I kind of like the perspective from which you've come. I think what you set forth to us is to say, look, listen, there are reasons, sometimes very pertinent or important reasons, cogent reasons as it were, that people migrate. And you've come from the perspective of healthcare. I will tell you my own experience, Prof. Doctor. In 2013, I had to do a sleep test. There was no place where I could do the sleep test in Nigeria. But when I got to New York and did the sleep test, my air ticket from Lagos or Abuja to New York cost more than the cost of the sleep test. If there was a specialist where I could have done it in Nigeria, I would certainly have gone there. As of last year, when a friend of mine, a very close family friend of mine, was diagnosed with cancer, 2020 at least, 21, I do not think that there was a PET scan machine in Nigeria. I don't know if there's one right now. but there was none in Lagos. And if there wasn't one in Lagos, then I don't know where there would have been one. So these are practical realities. And people also want to improve their lives. I have a friend who has just migrated to the UK. And by the time you convert his earnings now, of course, using the parallel rate, he earns far in excess of what I earn in Naira. Although, of course, I'm more experienced and I have a more senior role than he does in Nigeria. So these are some of the issues. People want to work in an environment where they have the equipment, where they then get the proper remuneration and all of that. So we will come back to you. I think maybe when we're doing the question and answer session, people will pick you up on some of those things. But please, Doctor, if it is possible, can you send your slides so that, we can circulate it? Because these are very, very, you have put out some very important statistics and perspectives in your slide. Thank you very much. We'll move very quickly. We'll call on our next speaker. Let me just tell Dr. Sota that you are the last speaker. So, you'll be called upon last so you can relax a bit. The next speaker is Aigbeze Uhimwen, who is of the International Office of Migration Benin office. And she's going to speak from the perspective of, Nigerians migrating. Of course, I know that there's this popular belief that people from Edo State, and I don't mean to be offensive, form a very large pool of the persons who migrate through those illegal routes. So maybe she'll speak more on that and tell us what the issues are and what government, or at least what the International Office of Migration is doing in that regard. So Aigbeze, please, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody, and to the co-panelists, good evening. I want to first thank the organizers of this webinar, particularly the Omoigui family. Unfortunately, I never met Dr. Nowa Omoigui, but I've read about him and I'm happy to be associated with his legacy. So to the topic, I would start by a quote. I had sent my slides before ahead of this discourse, so I'm sure much later it will be shared to the participants. I will touch a few things on what the presenter had said about Edo State and the numbers that we have that are returning migrants. First, I want to come from the perspective of migration being a tool for development. There are lots of positive things associated with migration. So I want to drop that in because it will help our mindsets. Countries as they are today, and migration has shaped them positively. It had brought a lot of advantages to them. The United Nations Secretary General, the former Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, he had a quote.
The apologies, I referred to you as the female. Please forgive me. I'm so sorry.
No problem, no problem.
All right.
So,
anyway, in these
saying,
days of gender fluidity, I think.
Okay, so let me take up the video so the connection is stronger. One of our Secretary General at the UN level, Ban Ki-moon, he had said, migration is an expression of human aspiration for dignity, safety, and a better future. It is part of the social fabric, part of our makeup as a human being. So the issues of migration will always come up, and it's something that we see as a right. It's something that we promote. Where I work, the International Organization for Migration, we see migration as a tool for development. Now, we have an office in Edo State, and really that office was opened in 2017 as a result of the high numbers of return migrants that were stranded, particularly in Libya. I recall in 2018 when I had to go to the airport, Lagos, to receive migrants who were coming from Libya. We had 2 flights that day, so sometime in December 2018. And each of the flights had over 150 people. The distance from Libya here is about 6 hours. We had to wait. And we had brought them in torrents. They just kept coming. By our statistics, we have over 30,000 people. I'm just talking about from just 2017 till date who have been brought back. One of the earlier speakers, I think it was Professor Ihonvbere, he talked about this, and I want to allude to that fact. The majority of people who have returned, who had engaged the irregular route. By irregular route, I mean most of those that traveled through the Mediterranean, trying to get to Europe, but were stranded in Libya, and we had to return them back because of the conditions that they found themselves through one of our programs we call assisted voluntary return. We have the age range. You have between 15 to 35, making up of about 70% of this population that we have brought back. And I'm saying that to say, these are the ones that we've brought back, which means at some point they japped, let's put it that way. And really, there is really no statistics to measure the volume of people that have japped, because when you are going particularly through the irregular routes, they don't really tell you. It's just something that happens, and we've seen it over time. But just to appreciate the seriousness of what is on ground, that is why I gave the statistics of those that we have brought back in their numbers, going to over 30,000 people. And the majority are men. In percentage, you have over 54% being men. And when you dig further, why is that the case? One of the reasons that we found out for them to have embarked on that irregular route is majorly economic reasons. When you interview them at the airport, that, okay, why did you travel? Don't you know, or didn't you hear about what happens in Libya? They'll tell you in local parlance that all die is die. So it's like, let's try. Now, for clarity, we have two types of migration. We have the irregular one, and we have the regular migration. Professor Julius had touched about this. I won't dwell so much on it. And some statistics that we have for the regular migration, because we run in IOM, we run a migration health assessment clinic. And some of the countries like the UK, Australia, Canada, etc., require as part of the visa processes that if you are going to stay there for beyond 6 months, maybe you are going for schooling or you are relocating for one reason or the other, maybe job, you must do TB test and that health assessment, which is done in our facility. So we have a facility in Lagos and we have a facility in Abuja. But thankfully, we also are opening a facility at the end of this month in Benin. So that will take care of at least those coming from the South. Within the last 3 years, the figures have been tremendous. In 2019, we just had, people who assessed the clinic for regular migration. Either they are going to school, either they got a job in the UK, so they are trying to do health assessment checks. In 2019, we had just about 35,000 visitors for the whole year. But in 2021, we had triple that figure. We had over 104 assessed that figure. But in 2020, just last year, we had over 240. So you can see this is an astronomical figure of over 10 times the number assessing our routes through the regular channel who are seeking medical assessment in our facilities. So what does that portend? If you now look at the ratio of those who are trying to go irregularly compared to those who are now trying to go regularly, there seems to be this rise, particularly those who are traveling for school. Because in our clinics, the school starts mostly September, thereabouts. You find out that right from April, the visitors that are accessing our centers is so much. The reasons are some of the factors that influence this type of migration. And like I told you earlier, that the age bracket is the youth. Though in comparison to other ages that access it, lots that access it are from the age of 15 to 35, and you can have up to 40 years. That is the area that is so much. Factors are much. So some are going for better education prospects. Some are going for increased earnings in terms of job, just like what the doctor that spoke before me had said. And some are going for better living conditions and amenities. Some are going for family reunification. Some are going for peer pressure. Because what we have found out, some just to meet up or just to be associated, they really don't have any reason to relocate, but they just choose, oh, my friend has relocated, that. I once had this discussion with a return migrant, and surprisingly, the reason why that person traveled was just because of pictures his friends post on Facebook. And he told himself, oh, okay, me too, I would also travel to Europe and post. That peer pressure, it's one thing that we are seeing increasingly making people to travel, this so-called Japa. And some are escaping from conflict or persecution or human rights violations. But I want to use our eyes to, in a way, positive sides of migration. Migration as a tool for development. I've had cause to engage a few returned migrants. I was speaking to one today who had returned from Germany. He went through the regular route though, and we had brought him back on our program, which we call the Assisted Voluntary Return Program. And now he's into comedy skit. So he told me that he's coming back to Nigeria. He has rediscovered himself. And he has devoted his time now to comedy. He's quite, I call his name, he's quite popular on Facebook. And he told me the kind of earnings he gets from skit making being posted on social media, Instagram and the rest. So what I'm trying to say with that is a few of them, when they return back, have found their purpose. So they have applied themselves to something more positive. And some of the gains of migration, anyhow you look at it, it has a way of increasing our cultural diversity. It has a way of bringing exposure to the populace. The other speaker had talked about one aspect, which is quite true in terms of diaspora remittances, both the formal remittances and the informal remittances. Whether you like it or not, every person that Japas, I'll round up very quickly, I know my time is almost up, has it at the back of his mind, he has an extended family tied to him, and remittances is something that always occurs. I always like to be positive in my thinking. So now, yes, we have seen a trend of health workers leaving the country. And even recently now, we know what the bill that is before the House. But I want us to look at it from a different angle. And I want to look at it from a positive angle. If there is a demand, and which there is, because people will naturally migrate to where their talent is better appreciated. People will naturally migrate to where they will have a better life. People will naturally migrate to where they feel would be more prosperous to them and their environment. And like I said, remittance is something that's always associated with migration, whether formally or informally. So, for example, the health sector, just think about it. If we have a population of over 200 million, don't you think we can tap into that positive side and say, okay, fine, let's produce more doctors, let's produce more healthcare workers, let's export them. UK needs them, fine. We produce them and sell them to UK. Okay, Saudi Arabia needs them. Yes, we produce more and export there, while we also insensitize the ones that are here, make the environment better for them. So it's now a thing of choice. Because my point I'm trying to make is, let us look at it from the positive angle.
Mr. Aigbeze, are you there? Okay. Yeah, thank you very much for your intervention. Thank you very much for your intervention. There's some issues you raised up. Particularly, I would like to know more about, the efforts of the IOM post-return, i.e., what do you do to integrate these people back into normal society? Because there's always this challenge for someone who comes back to feel like a failure. I've told everyone I was going to Italy, or I was going to the UK, or I was going to the United States, and 3 years later here I am, having never crossed Libya, and I'm back to square one. So please hold your thoughts and we'll come back to you. We have
Looks like we're having a network problem by the speaker.
So sorry. Okay, let me just wrap up. I don't think maybe we had the points I made, but in closing, what I'm saying is every migrant, everybody that leaves is an embodiment of a lot of skills, a lot of talents, and migration can be a tool for development. There's a positive side of migration, and I want us to look at that positive side. And I said just as an aside, that even in the health sector, it's something that our population, we have over 200 million people. We can look at it positively and export more. And while we export more, we also take care of those that are here, make them have better working environments, make them have better tools. So even if they want to migrate, it will be a thing of choice, not out of necessity. Thank you for the audience. And I want to again thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity, to the Omoigui and DAGOMO Foundation. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much for your intervention. Apologies, I went off. I think this was one of the things that Dr. Egbe was talking to us about. Some people might migrate only just to enjoy good internet supply. So we have with us Mrs. Abike Dabiri. You're welcome, Ma. We're happy to have you here. We understand you're pressed for time. So please, you can proceed to quickly make your intervention. Thank you very much. Hello, Ma. Okay, while we wait for her to join us, I'll just give a little, perspective from my own experience. So I went to school at 40 exactly. I mean, when I say school, I went for my, postgraduate degree at 40. I went to Columbia University, and I had a very nice time in New York. And for a brief moment, I toyed with the idea of actually staying back in the US. But I put a threshold for myself. I said if I didn't get an offer for $300,000 per annum, I would not stay in the US. I did that then when the dollar was 360 naira to the dollar. So I benchmarked with what Okay, Ma, you're ready?
Hi.
Oh,
Well,
thank
I
you,
don't
Ma.
know whether
We can hear you. We can hear you, Ma.
no, it keeps disconnecting. So it's going to disconnect anyway. So let's just say what I can within 2 minutes. This is Saudi Arabia. And
Oh, okay.
there's no connection here. They are not like us. Wi-Fi is not something you just, WhatsApp is not something you just get anyhow. I hope you can hear me. So they're going to disconnect me. I mean, it's not so free. So all this chatting and everything.
We're fine with you, Ma. Yes, Ma. Yes, Ma.
So
Thank
good
you.
evening. I'll be very brief. Because I'm going to be disconnected anyway. So good evening, everybody. Thank you, Feko, for putting this together in honor of your late parents. May the soul rest in perfect peace. And it's a very important conversation, which I wish I could spend more time to discuss. But let me just go straight to the point. And what are the solutions? I heard a bit of what the last speaker said. You can't stop migration, but let's encourage regular migration. I think that is number one. With IOM had been bringing Nigerians back from Libya. Then I wrote a letter to the president when I saw that it was getting too much, and I called for a massive evacuation. Within 2 months, we brought back 10,000 from Libya at a go for evacuations. Guess what? They're still going. And they are still sending distress calls, which I will send to IOM and say, listen, our people are stranded again. How do you stop this kind of migration? It's very important. Now you're going for, as somebody said, you're migrating for different reasons. So what are the reasons? Now let's look at those that are going without knowing where they're going to. I think that is where we have the problem. As I speak to you, I just brought out a lady from Iraq just 2 days ago. She landed in Lagos. She was lost and trafficked and all that. But here's the thing about migration, about jackpying. And in Midcom, we say, when you jackpy, you jackpada. And that's what we're hoping, the positive side of migration. Now, government must put its house in order. There's no debate about that. I spoke to a doctor last week. He's in the UK. He was almost crying on the phone. He said he's depressed, period. He said if the salary was just 1 million naira, he'll come back home. So how do we make our country a better place for our citizens? That is a matter of fact. Some people don't really want to go, but if I'm 30 years old, 35 years old, I graduated, I didn't get a job, I'll go wherever I'm told there's a job. That is one. We have to make our society a better place. But it's not all bad. Like somebody said, look, when our people go abroad, they turn out to be the best. We have all the pilots on the African airspace now are Nigerians. There are 70% of pilots, of doctors, of professionals. Now, migration is not bad, but what are the positive sides of it? Number one, we talk about remittances. That is even a tip of the iceberg. Remittances is one, and all that. But irregular migration should be discouraged. I think that is the most important thing. Irregular migration should be discouraged. There's no point going to look for a job and you don't get the job, then you come back with nothing. There's a gentleman who sold everything he had, almost 10 million naira, and migrated and came back with nothing. That is a matter of fact. Two, why should we lose our best and the brightest? We shouldn't lose our best and the brightest. However, if they go, they should come back with better citizens to contribute back to Nigeria. What should the country do? Let us fix our country. Some don't want to go, but some have to go. That is fact of the matter. Now, a bill just came up in Parliament, and I'll round up with this, saying that they should stop doctors from going. I disagree totally. You can't just pass a bill saying doctors don't go after 5 years. They're not the only ones going. And then the positive side is, do you know the number that are coming back to set up hospitals in Nigeria? So brain drain, brain gain, brain circulation. Let's look at the positive side of it. Now, that's what we're celebrating, brain circulation. Our doctors are coming back. They're setting up hospitals. Nobody's talking about them. We have one of the best cancer hospitals in Nigeria today. We have one of the best stroke centers in Nigeria today. People come from abroad to go to them. There were Nigerians who went abroad and came back. Our professors are coming back during the sabbatical to teach in our institutions and all that. So I don't even know whether you're hearing me, but I just...
We can hear you, please, continue.
I just want to say that, sorry, I'm rushing. I'll post my speech to wherever email, maybe it can be useful later. But I want to say that there are good sides and bad sides of migration. Let's look at the good side of migration. Let's discourage the bad side of migration. I see people that come back and weep at the airport, and particularly young girls, trafficked, prostitution, and that's not what they were going for. Here in Saudi Arabia, we had to stop the issue of trafficking. I know the job we put into stopping that here in South Africa. Same thing with Lebanon. We had to stop work visas to Lebanon completely so that you don't go there and you're treated like slaves. That is the downside of migration. Then we're encouraging managed migration, working with IAM and that. Migration can be managed. People that are going to work. Let them get proper jobs, legal jobs, properly in a documented fashion. That is what we're trying to do, working with IOM and other agencies to get that done. But hey, you can't stop people from migrating, but migrate legally. Don't forget home. It's still your country. And then let's fix our country. Security, power, infrastructure. But however, at the same time, remember that if you all leave and the country is fixed, you miss the moving train. So let's encourage ourselves. And when you do go, stop condemning your country. We can't be going abroad and condemning Nigeria. It's our country. We have to do what we can to salvage it. So I'm just rushing and hoping that I made a bit of sense. But the key thing is that we can't stop migration, legal or illegal. Let's reduce irregular migration and let us ensure that we raise awareness as to the dangers of irregular migration. I see it every day and it's so disheartening. Dangers of irregular migration. And for those who are migrating regularly, well, make sure that you come back and Jakpada, and don't forget your country, Nigeria. So thank you very much for putting this together. I'll post my script, maybe on an email or something. Maybe it might be useful. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Thank you
very much, madam. Thank you so much. We appreciate you taking time to speak to us. Thank you so much. We wish we could have you for more, so that we could also speak to you more about some of the things you're doing.
And I'm sorry, the video is not even showing because, like I said, there are
it's all right.
Here,
we totally understand. We totally understand. Thank you so much. We would please appreciate if you can post your script, and then I'm sure if there's any feedback for you, we'll let you have it. Thank you so much, and please pray for Nigeria and pray for us. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes,
Take care. Bye.
All right. Very quickly, so that we can move in with the program. Very insightful intervention. I've learned a new word today: brain circulation. Yes, we must discourage illegal migration. And I think that at the end of the day, we will come to a consensus that one cannot stop migration because people will always move for different reasons. But when people move as much as possible, they should move through the proper channels and they should be documented so that if they do return or they want to return, they can also come back, through the proper channels. Also, it avoids some of this terrible images that we'll see. Some of the videos I've seen are so gory, I couldn't watch them, of our people being enslaved, being treated worse than animals in some of these countries, Libya, etc. Let us call up Ms. Ihonvbere quickly to speak to us. I introduced her previously. I gave her a profile. She works with the Edo State government, focused on youth employment, and she's the CEO, Managing Director of the, Edo State Government Skills Development Agency. So, Ms. Ihonvbere, please, you have the floor for 10 minutes. Thank you very much. Ms. Ihonvbere? Do we know if she's here, please? Okay, while we wait for her to come, we have someone who has decided to come and share his experience with us. He is actually someone who has, jackpot as it were before, but he's come back to the country. And so he's going to share his experience from a practical perspective. I mean, while we've heard Mr. Sowore and we've had Prof, I believe Prof and Mr. Sowore went through the proper channels. So I want to hear from Friday Ofem, who will share with us his practical experience from a perspective of someone who left and came back. So Mr. Friday, you have the floor. Mr. Friday, sir. Okay, maybe Mr. Friday too is not here with us. As I was mentioning earlier, before I call up Dr. Sota, I did toy with the idea of actually staying back in the United States after I had finished my postgraduate studies. But like I mentioned, I had a particular income expectation, but I was only scheduled for one interview through the job, skills. I think there was a job fair in my school, and I only got one interview, and the interview was not successful as it were. Maybe I was too old, or maybe I didn't fit the profile of what they wanted. But the reality is that sometimes these decisions are also made by people that we will ordinarily look at and say, look, this man is comfortable. He has a good job in Nigeria. He has a house. He has a car. I mean, his social status is, what we could even refer to as upper middle class. So why do we still, especially in recent times, I would say in the last 2-3 years, I've had some of my colleagues who have just woken up in the morning, literally, and said to us, oh, I'm going off to Canada. Some of them are going off to the UK. In the UK, we understand that, because the policy in the United States has changed, in the United Kingdom rather has changed, whereby I think if you go to school now, you will immediately get a work permit, and there's actually a path to citizenship, I think in 5 to 10 years thereabout. So a lot of Nigerians have tried to take advantage of that. And so we'll come back to speak to all of those things. But I would like Dr. Sota, who is a sibling of late Nowa. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, he's the co-author of the Nigerian National Anthem and a diasporan. So we'd like him to speak to us on an outside view of diasporans of Nigeria, an outside view of Nigeria from the diaspora perspective. You're welcome, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, moderator. You're doing a great job.
Thank you, sir.
I want to thank my younger sister, Ifweko, and her organizations, compliance professionals, DAGOMO Foundation for such an excellent webinar in honor of my late brother, Dr. Nowa Omoigui. And the attendance at this is a testament to the love and the legacy that he left behind. Right now we have 112 participants. My brother Nowa was like a shooting star. And you know what shooting stars are? They light up the earth for a brief moment and then they are gone. But I'm sure if he had his choice and asked whether he wanted a long life with no legacy or a short life with legacy, he would have chosen the short life with a legacy. So may he rest in peace. So this is a very interesting topic. And when we wrote the national anthem in 1977, Nigeria was a much different place. And so it fills me with great sorrow to see what the country has become and what the youths of today are having to go through. No person younger than 40 years today knows the Nigeria that we experienced, and which is a real tragedy. And Prof, I will address a couple of points. The CV where they mentioned my association with Yale was an error. I believe it was also the same thing with Dr. Egbe Dawodu. They were wrong things, but I know where the errors came from. It came from artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence right now is
I can tell you the culprit is ChatGPT is the new culprit in town now.
Yes,
so.
that's AI. ChatGPT is AI, and I know it's not. We're still at the very rudimental stages of ChatGPT, whereby it mixes different things. But I can tell you, ChatGPT is going to be a game changer for so many things. I just used ChatGPT to write a patent application just in the last few weeks. And it made a big difference. So great things are coming from artificial intelligence. And in question of the books I wrote, I've written a lot more books, but the ones you attributed to me was the wrong thing. But anyway, I will mention the first speaker, Omoleye Sowore, I met him briefly here in California before he went on his quest for the presidency. And, you know, I've always said in Nigeria, no honest man can win the presidency of Nigeria. It's not possible. We have built in a structure that essentially rewards the corrupt. And when you talk about Japa, our youths are Japaing because their situation is helpless and hopeless. And the root causes of this situation being helpless and hopeless is the pervasive corruption in the land. We have a corruption that stretches across the federal, state, local governments, the judiciary, private organizations, private agencies. And let me tell you, when you have no corruption, you have lack of accountability, you have no transparency, there's no plan that you're going to make, white paper, yellow paper, green paper, that's going to work. All plans will be sacrificed at the altar of corruption. And it pervades every single aspect of life. You know, if we look at Nigeria, you can't blame the youths for escaping. Nigeria is in a demographic time bomb right now. Our population is rising by about 7.3 million a year. By the year 2100, Nigeria's population will be about 710 million. We'll be third in population of the entire world after China. And what do you see? There's no plan. We're not planning for the future because our leadership are greedy, corrupt, and just thieves and looters. In India, there was a plan, even by Narendra Modi. I mean, he has his faults, but there was a plan when he was a governor of a state to institute an economic empowerment plan to lift people out of poverty. And this includes provision of electricity, provision of digital infrastructure, provision of pipe-borne water, roads. And that is how you lift people out of poverty. In China, they did the same thing, lifted 770 million people out of poverty. How do you expect our youth to stay when they can't even have a business because there's no power? When they don't even have running water? So everybody is jackpine because the government has made the situation hostile for them. And so the leadership, when I ask people, in the 20 years of democracy, are you better off? I've never seen one person say they were better off. The democracy we practice in Nigeria is a sham. The legislators set their own allowances. The governors even set their own pension benefits. The governors are corrupt. We need a national emergency plan under the right leadership to provide electricity. The government must get out of the way of the youths and the population empowering themselves economically. Digital infrastructure, you must have that. Then I see people talking, the legislators trying to put a bill to keep doctors in Nigeria for 5 years. What kind of, what kind of planning are these people doing? How do you keep a doctor in the place when you have no running water in the teaching hospital? Even in Edo State, there was a statement by Obaseki mourning why doctors were not going to the primary healthcare centers. How can they go? No light, no water, no toilet facilities. How?
And even the specialist hospital, the tertiary hospital, the central hospital that used to be there was demolished. A new building was put up. It collapsed after 5 months because of corruption, whereby the structure was compromised. They built up, patched it up, put it back up, and consented it to a private medical group. And the state has no tertiary medical center now. And you go to all the teaching hospitals, the equipment are stolen. There's no power. There's no water. Patients have to bring their own water to the hospital. And to stay in conditions, we have to have a change in leadership, a leadership that loves the country. Because if you have leaders who don't love the country, you will not have a country anymore. So we must tackle this from the root causes. And I say the 1999 Constitution has been a roadmap to failure of this country. A constitution that gives governors immunity. You know, we must tackle things from the root. And let me tell you, when our people japa, the vast majority of them bloom and flourish, just like in agriculture. Plants are sweeter, vegetables are sweeter based on the soil in which they are grown, whether it's a clay soil or a sandy soil. Our people, our youths are being grown in a very hostile, acidic soil that prevents their ability to thrive. So we must, and when we're talking about accountability, we must address the accountability of the civil service. Because no governor can take money if the civil servant doesn't sign on that. The same thing with all the other agencies, whether it's the judiciary, the executive, the legislature, the local government. We must hold our civil servants accountable. Many need to be sent to jail for being a part of the fraud. And in fact, some of those people who steal money really need to be lined up and shot, which is what China did, which is what Malaysia did, which is what Singapore did. Because we cannot, this kind of corruption, and like Buhari said, the president, in one of his few cogent statements in 8 years, was that if Nigeria doesn't kill corruption, corruption is going to kill Nigeria. So Ajapa people like Ms. Abike said, you have regular, irregular, but they're living for a better environment. The only way we can reverse this Japa is by making home hospitable, for giving them the ability to run their own businesses and take care of themselves. They don't need the government. They just want the government to give them the infrastructure. And Nigerians are a very enterprising group. They are creative, they're enterprising, and they will do well under the right environment. We see that in our music, because the music did not need all this heavy infrastructure. We see that in our movies, because they were able to create the condition. But the rest of the country have to do everything for themselves. And that is really not the way that we can get out of this. So let me just see if I have anything there. So yes, so the solution for Japa is infrastructure. And then now we talk about hospitals, building hospitals, and PET scans, sleep centers. But you know the funny thing? You put an equipment in the hospital and a little thing breaks in that equipment is completely rendered useless, because we have no steel industry, we have no manufacturing base, we have no technical schools to fix the equipment. So how are you going to be bringing equipment? How are you going to expect these hospitals to thrive when the moment a CT scan is broken, you have to ship the CT scan either back or ship the technicians here, and you have to import every single part. So it's a wide range problem that we missed from the last 50 years, how our steel industry was compromised by greed and corruption. So we must start from the basics. Otherwise, our youths who are helpless and hopeless will continue to jackpot out, and they will do well when they get here, because they will see the things that are available for them. And so the last thing I want to say is that Omoleye Sowore mentioned about the Yahoo groups. Yes, the Yahoo groups were full of indiscipline, just like the Nigerians who came from where they came from, because there were no rules, there was no order, there was no person maintaining discipline, and that's why they all ran amok. So we need a disciplined country. We need accountability, transparency, and we need to set all of these things right so this country can grow and be the great country it was destined to be. Thank you.
Wow, doctors, that was thought-provoking. You know, as you were speaking, I kept reading the first two lines of the first stanza. Arise, O compatriots, Nigeria's call will be to serve our fatherland with love, strength, and faith. Do you think that maybe you should have written in there something about the country also serving its own people with probably fidelity, justice, or something? Because this anthem, reading it now, seems to have only asked of us, the citizens. And like JFK will say, well, to reverse JFK now, ask not what, you know, you should do for Nigeria, but what Nigeria should do for you. Because, you know, a young person, you said no one younger than 40, or yeah, is it younger than 40 now, would have known the Nigeria. I'm 44, sir, and I'm not sure I even know that Nigeria. Because to be honest, one thing that agitates me these days is to say, look, I grew up saying up NEPA, I grew up putting generators. Now I have two kids, 6 and 4, and they've begun to know the concept of generators. They've also begun to know the concept of power outages. And it petrifies me to think that in 44 years' time or 40 years' time, my son will be sitting in front of a laptop here now and also saying, please put on the gen so I can, you know, stay on the program. So it's been a long one. I can see that Prof wants to go. Prof, before you go, do you want to just say something as your closing remarks before you leave? And then we'll quickly take a few questions, and then, of course, we'll have to close for the day. It's been almost 2 hours, and we really appreciate everyone that has stayed here. You know, we started with less than 100 people, and we still have over 100 people. So this is very impressive. Prof, do you want to quickly say something for a minute or two, and then you can take your leave?
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, sir.
All right. First, I want to thank all the speakers. Just want to comment on the place of the National Assembly in this Japa Syndrome. I know that the legislators are often the most unpopular segments anywhere in the world. They are not liked. People have assumptions about them, but most Nigerians don't even know what legislators do. We are known for only constituency projects, but in reality, that is not why we are elected. On that bill, I'm one of those not supporting it. If you are going to keep doctors for 5 years, you should keep everybody else for 5 years. But that even is unrealistic. The solution is make the hospital better, make the conditions of service better, and create an enabling environment that encourages each Nigerian to reach the highest points of his or her creative ability. That way, you build a nation where people will not be escaping from. But for us at the National Assembly, every day we have plenary. There are over 10, 12, 15 motions, sometimes 15, 20 bills, all directed at addressing one problem or the other. But as you know, we only make the laws. We don't interpret, we don't execute. It is the executive that does that. And in many cases, they don't even listen to what we say. So we can only hope and pray that a synergy will emerge into the future, where between the executive and the legislature, there is prioritization, there is genuine execution, effective deployment of scarce resources to areas that would create the kind of nation we all want. And Abike is right. Until we improve this country, until we make it better, until we make it safer, until we make opportunities available to young people, but not just government jobs. Nobody wants those, but create an enabling environment. Access to credit, which Tinubu says he will do, which the current government seems not to bother about. We would not make any progress, I'm afraid. Even people as old as myself sometimes think that what's the point wasting my time here? Why don't I go out? But I've been there, done that. It's not the best. But for some people, it is the best. And Abike is also right. Many people go, they acquire new skills, build new networks, bring it back here and improve our country for the better. So I want to thank Ifweko and the others for putting this on, and you particularly for moderating so well. And I assure you that I'm fully with you, whatever the recommendations are, whatever I can do in the House of Representatives, you can be rest assured that it will get done.
Prof, thank you so much for your intervention. I'll take you up on your offer. I know your office, so you cannot run away from me. I'll come and see you.
Anytime, anytime, please.
Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you. All right. Bye.
Yes, all right. Please, I would appeal to everyone to please bear with us. We'll be rounding up in another 30 minutes. It's been a very interesting session. I wish we could continue for much longer, but we have to be mindful of the time of the day for some of us here in Nigeria and those who are in the diaspora being a working day. So I would call up Mr. Friday to quickly speak to us. Friday, apologies. I would abridge your time from 10 to 5 minutes. So please just quickly speak to us, share your experience with us, and give us any insights that you think we should have. So Friday, please, you have the floor. Friday, are you here now? Okay, if we can't hear you. Friday, you're muted. You need to unmute, please. You need to unmute.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, please. We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Yeah. The experience I have when I traveled to overseas was a very horrible one. Yes, all my life, I always dream traveling to overseas. But I always, at the same time, find it comfortable staying in Nigeria, and with the fact that I don't even know anyone there. But because of the condition of Nigeria, I keep thinking, how do I go? How do I survive? How do I survive this nation? How do I survive this problem that is coming that we don't even know? You can, every day things are going up. Nigerian market doesn't go down. It's only Nigerian market that does not go down in all the whole trade in the world. Nigerian market is always going up, inflation every day. I keep thinking, how do I survive this? How do I make out time? And things are going, we cannot still achieve anything. For some of us here that are very poor, that came back from a very poor background, that don't have money to go to all these Polish educations. I keep thinking, so I have an opportunity. A friend told me that I should come to Cyprus, that the place is good, that they are making pounds. Making pounds and euros. I said, okay. He said, this is how you are going to do it. He said, okay. This guy, he collected my money when I went there. I could not, they were like, they started giving me business, that forcing me the kind of business that I'll be doing, that these are the kind of business that can do to make money. Me, a common nature, make money in Nigeria here, telling me that I should be passing drugs. People, this is what is going on here. And I see people that are doing that kind of job for many years. People doing that kind of job for many years, their life have been in danger. They don't have future. They don't even have money to come back to Nigeria. They are tired. The bills over there are too much. They are tired. They don't know how to come back to Nigeria. Some of them that even when they work with schooling, they say that I know where you go with school, they will write in your passport, they will put it working prohibited as a student. So when they go there, they don't have good resources to go to school because they come to Nigeria is not okay. They now went there just to use that opportunity and go there to go and see if they can maybe working and be schooling. At the end of the day, they will find out that they cannot even complete their school and they cannot even get job because their passport is working prohibited. So they will now run out of school. They will go to the streets. They don't have where to sleep now. They will now stay at the railway stations, at the uncompleted buildings, different of lifestyle. Then they will now use them and be doing farming work that they did not come with so visa. This is what you came as a student, or this is the kind of work you can do. So they will use you as for farming, dirty jobs, packing sheets, so many dirty business. That's the only business, and the money cannot still survive you. The only thing that money can do to you is for you to use it to eat that particular day. What a life. I was confused. I don't know who to call. Me that was in Nigeria. I'm a nail tech. I do nails. I do pedicure. My shop is at Ademola. I left this place just to travel because the country was shaking. I traveled last year, June. Country was shaking. Everything was going so the way I did not even expect. But when I went there and experienced, I saw what Nigerians are facing. They sleep in the beach, at the beaches. That is where so many of them sleep for the daybreak, both cold, anytime. Then they come back from it. Okay. Let me just go straight to the point and look for work. You not see work. You now go, some people will now go and look for their friends, or they will now go and beg. So my brother, abroad, for people that goes to abroad, so though I don't know, people have their own determination. So many people have their own determination, and some grades are different. But I think Nigeria should, in fact, a lot of people commit suicide. I know of two ladies that went to 10-story building. The last floor, they fell from that place down because for them to come back, the flight was 800 and something thousand, and before they will do all those rapid tests, they do so many things, the bill will be too much. So the madam, they said that the madam carried them from Nigeria, that they should come. This is the business that they have for them. They have working team. They have work already for them on ground. When the girls reach there, they put them inside the room. They were inviting men to come and sleep with those girls, and there will be no open doors for those girls to come outside. So maybe the day that those girls will succeed and find themselves outside and discover that this is what they found themselves, they don't know how to go back. If you go to the police, you go to prison. If you did not go to the police, either you go to the prison before they will deport you, or you so many things. So they commit a lot of suicide. They go to the beach, they fall. Nigeria is falling inside the beaches. From upstairs, they fall down. That is how Nigerians are suffering abroad. A lot. This one are the ones maybe that they have succeeded to go. This is what most importantly, and to be precise, Cyprus, Nigerians are suffering in Cyprus a lot. A lot of Nigerians are suffering in Cyprus. If you go to Cyprus, you see what's happening to Nigeria over there. Before I came back, I was not even having money to come back again. if I show you the pictures of the type of job I did before me coming back to Nigeria, first, I have to sell my things in my room. That's why my room is just like this. I don't have a lot of things again. I called Nigeria, they have to sell all these things. They sell all these things. They sell everything. I don't even have, only this small bed I'm using. Me that made the night and made me, I was a millionaire in Nigeria. I made a lot of money in Nigeria before traveling. I went there, I was destroyed. Bills. Finally, I started working in the farm, carrying cows. Cows, this cow milk. You go and press cows, you bring out their milk. That's the type of work I find myself doing. And how much was that work paying me? That work was 300 euros. If you do that work and you get 300 euros, okay, now how much would you eat for 300 euros for a month? If you make 300 euros, because you know that I went there, I did not go with a working visa. I went there as a student. So that's the kind of work I should be doing. Brother, it was not easy for me. I started doing all those type of job, packing, so dirty, carrying so many, doing dirty things, working in the farm, planting corn, beans, everything. I just arranged my money and I have to fly back to Nigeria. I used Qatar Airways to come back successfully. Nobody was even aware. It was when I came back, I told my people that this is really what happened. It was a very terrible experience. I have a lot of friends.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
I have a lot of friends that they don't even know how to start. You know, if you really don't have this energy, and maybe you don't have focus and maybe you don't know, because I've seen a lot of 7 years old, people that have been there 7 years, 8 years, they cannot write home about, they are not married, they are even gotten old because of the hard job. So I came back, I was working in Ademola, my clients were reduced. I could not even make one naira. I was making like 700 to 800,000 at time. Right. I cannot make 100,000. I have to struggle myself and left Ademola, Adetokunbo, and go back to Wuse.
Friday, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. I think it is important that we listen to people like Friday because they bring practical experience to us. And Friday, I'll encourage you to link up with, I think, someone like Mr. Aigbeze to document your experience, because, you know, when we speak to people about these things, especially about illegal migration, a lot of people think that my own case will be different. And I'll tell you an experience I had when I resigned I resigned my job in 2018, and I went to another place. I wouldn't mention the name of the place. It's a government institution. And prior to going there, I'd been told that the chief executive in that institution was running the place like a Gestapo camp. But I said to myself, no, I'm Michael Ango. I'm good at what I do. I've worked with chief executives, you know, and so I can manage him. So there's always this mentality that, oh, my own case will be different. But my case was not different. When I got there, experience was as bad as everyone had said it would be. So we thank God that you're back here. I encourage you to keep the faith. You're back in Nigeria and you can start all over again. You are alive, I think, which is very important. The gift of life itself is something. So I'll advise that you link up with Mr. Egbe, and I'll also collect your details, and then maybe we can speak, you know, sometime within the week. So thank you so much for your courage to come out and share your experience with us. We really appreciate it. And we hope that, you know, you will make a success of your time back here in Nigeria. Before we move on, I would like to invite Nete, who is a niece to late Mr. Dr. Nowa. Nete says she wants to tell us something. So we'll invite Nete to speak to us very quickly. Netta, it's past your bedtime, but since your school is on holiday, I believe your mom has allowed you to stay up late. So Netta, please speak to us very quickly. Is Netta here? Is Netta here, please?
Yes, Sam.
Oh, good evening. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
All right, everyone is listening to you. Hello, Netta.
Yes,
Yeah, you can speak. We're listening to you. What do you want to tell us today?
about the topic.
Okay, speak to us.
Well, I have a question.
Okay, you can ask the question.
If people shouldn't leave Nigeria, why aren't other people making Nigeria? Why aren't we making Nigeria better?
Okay. So your question is that if we don't want people to leave Nigeria, why are we not making Nigeria better, right?
Yes.
Okay, is that the only question you have?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. So I would allow the speakers to answer your question so that they can give you a very good answer. And then when they're done, I'll probably make closing remarks, and then we'll also call up Mr. Nowa Omoigui to give us the closing remarks. But very quickly here, our speakers, thank you so much for being here with us. I would start in the order in which we had started, and I'll quickly call up on Mr. Sowore to please give us, his closing remarks and address some of the issues that have come up. I remember in your intervention, you did talk about a glass ceiling for immigrants. So this glass ceiling, is it exactly a real or a contrived glass ceiling? And is it because we're immigrants? Is it because we're Black? Or is there something in our makeup in the makeup of the society where we go to? Is there something in the United States that, makes it impossible for an immigrant to particularly, ascend that glass ceiling, as it were? So please speak to these issues and any other issues that might have come up in the course of the program, so that we can quickly close. All right. Mr. Sowore, please. Okay, it's likely that he's not here. I'd appeal to him to stay back, but we totally understand. Dr. Egbe has also taken her leave. So I would go to Mr. Aigbeze to please speak to some of these things. Okay, Emmanuel, yes, you are asking. So because of the structure of the program, all right, I know you have raised your hand for a while, so maybe you can ask your question. So Emmanuel, quickly ask your question.
Thank you very much. My name is Professor Emmanuel Jipotolore. I am the current president of Ibadan College of Medicine Alumni Association. There's a particular question or comment I wanted to make while Mrs. Abike Dabiri was on. And this is something that is concerning. It's about the effect of government policy on the university system, specifically the Treasury single account. As we all know, academic staff have the responsibilities for teaching, for service and research. And many of those academicians who still remain in our universities stay because of research, because they publish and they want to maintain their international recognition. But now, the Treasury single account does not allow them to keep their research grants. Third-party funds coming from other countries, coming from donor agencies, have to go into the TSA account. And then they don't come out in a timely manner. Our researchers are now beginning to fall back or delay on their milestones for their research. And the reputation that the universities have had over the years for research is being affected. I thought it's a very simple matter that can be solved by government, that you do not have to have third-party funds being deposited in TSA accounts. Otherwise, we will find our researchers leaving and going to other universities, other countries to carry their research grants there. Or they will go and form NGOs through which they will now get their research grants. And the public sector will be the loser. I've mentioned this in other fora, but it doesn't seem as if anyone is interested in looking at this particular unexpected consequence of the TSA policy. Thank you.
Very, very valid point, sir. I was in government when the TSA policy came to be, and it had a lot of teething problems, especially for some organizations that, you know, typically need to access their funds in real time, as it were. Another place where this issue of TSA funds or TSA policy has come into perspective is also where you have, for example, PPP programs, where probably you have like a donor-funded initiative where a donor brings in funds and then you are supposed to bring your counterpart funds. Now, because the money is to be used for a particular project by a government agency, we now say the money should go into TSA. The problem is that once money goes into TSA, the next question is, how do you spend it? Is it appropriated for, etc.? But I had never even averted my mind to the issue of research funds. And to be honest, sir, I was not aware before today that if I go and write a research proposal, for example, from a donor agency, and that money is to be given to University X, but of course, let's say it's a professorial chair or some donor-funded research, that the money has to go into TSA. I never knew about that, but this is a very important issue. So I think it's one of the things that we may probably write into some sort of communique or recommendations from this particular memorial, because I expect that the Secretariat would also kind of do a summary of key issues discussed. And we may then, you know, bring it up. We have a new administration coming in place in the next 6 weeks. I believe they will be open to suggestions because, again, they know that they have to improve certain things as they were. So it's a very important one. I've taken a note of it. I would pick it up with, you know, the Secretariat. And then, of course, we will see how this issue can be brought to the fore of the key decision makers. I'll take just two more comments so that we can then, you know, take our closing remarks from Mr. Nowa Omoigui. I understand there's another Emmanuel, or is it the same you, sir?
No, this is Emmanuel Oribabo from DAGOMO Foundation.
Okay, sir.
Good evening, everybody.
Yes.
I'm in from Benin, and my area in Benin is the center of Japa. Almost everybody in my street, almost everybody in my area has left, and they keep leaving. Even this evening, 1 or 2 have left. What we have noticed in Benin is that public enlightenment is needed. There's in Benin, for instance, from what I know, from working with NGOs and other people involved with migration, is that the migration here is really borders on human trafficking. And it's going on heavily in the villages. In the towns, the various agencies have succeeded in working in stemming the tide, but it has moved to the villages, to the suburbs, Esan, Edonot, Esako. People who do not know anything, they just go there, they pick them and they move them to countries they do not know about and trade them in those countries. And people are really suffering. People are suffering. People are dying every day. These traffickers are known. We know them, they're in our community, but we are afraid because there's no adequate security to protect people who grass on them. So I think more public enlightenment is needed, especially in the rural areas. So
Have we lost Emmanuel? Have we lost Emmanuel? All right. Another hand that is up. This will be the last intervention we'll take from the participants. Bencha. Sorry, I don't know your name, but it shows you as Bencha. You want to speak quickly? 1 minute.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Charles Wensuya-Dosama, SAN.
Okay, I suspected that it was a live bencher or a bencher. So you're welcome, Leonard Silsa.
I don't know how bencher got into my details. But
you're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, moderators. It's been a great job you've done. But let me also thank those who have done this in memoriam for Nowa Omoigui, my friend, very, very close friend, a great man in all respects, somebody who has left his footprints on this earth, even though it would have been much better if he had lived much longer. Nowa was a quintessential Benin man. You know, he was a patriotic Nigerian and somebody whose insights a lot of people sought. You know, somebody who was a pride to his generation and a pride to Nigeria as well. You know, such a cognitive human being that outside his core area of cardiology, he was a noted historian as well as a military strategist. I mean, one could say a lot of things about Nowa. Saying them with a lot of pride, also with a tinge of sadness that he's no longer with us. You know, so for doing this shows that he was such a remarkable fellow that sometimes you even want to talk about him in the present terms, in spite of the fact that he had left us. You know, but this whole program also eloquently testifies to the fact that whether he's here or not, he will always be with us. We'll continue to remember him for the positive things he stood for, and hoping that while interrogating him, we'll continue to do good for other Nigerians. The topic of discussion is quite important. I don't think there's any family in Benin where we are from that haven't had migrations. And I was hastening to join others who say that migrations on its own is not a bad thing. It's human nature. In fact, the whole world is populated by migrations, you know, and the country that's America today is today what it is because of migrations, you know. The bad part of it we've spoken about, those who haven't been left with no alternatives have had to run the gauntlet just to make a living. You know, I don't think any sane human being will brave the Sahara, even for trained people who are trained to face adversities. You know, there's a tribe of people who seek adventure. You know, they will balk to dare the Sahara, and yet you have our sons and our daughters, you know, facing the harsh sands of the Sahara, the wastes of the Sahara, just to get to a place of economic advantage. That's quite sad. It's a sad testimony to the betrayal that those who have governed this country all this while have caused. I've seen some Benin people in Europe, in my travels in Europe, my work travels in Europe, you found out you see someone who was you know that he was a former armed robber, but yet in Europe you see him very law abiding, positive, and doing things to make an honest living. The reason why he was an armed robber back home is because he had no other choice. Society had dealt him so much blows that his natural instincts had forced him to take those steps. And what were they looking for? They were looking for money to buy visas, passports, and airfares. And where some of them have come back, they've become law-abiding people, contributing positively in the places where they've successfully birthed and are making a living. Those other ones who across the Atlantic, who are like my brother Sota, for instance, were attracted for what God had endowed them with, their brains. They couldn't really operate here. They found opportunities elsewhere where they could better express themselves and fulfill themselves. If you take the statistics, I think the public health system in most American states are run by Nigerians. If you remove Nigerians from those systems, there'll be a crisis. There will be a crisis. And let us not talk about the engineers in NISA and the industries or the finance people in the banks, all that finance houses, the equity houses and all that. So we can't complain about those because we're not the only ones there. There's a stiff competition. The Indians are there as well, just as the Chinese are there as well. The Asians, mostly, I've mentioned the Chinese and the Indians, they're also there. If you look at the United Kingdom, the Asians, the Pakistanis are practically taking it over. They've taken it over. That's migration. And there's a benefit for their home countries. For instance, benefit for Nigeria is seen in the kind of inflow that come with Western Union and other cash transfer engines that make inflow into Nigeria possible. How we use those inflows is a different thing entirely. We also hear stories of betrayals by relatives of people who send money down for projects that are themselves guides and all that. But that is just part of the pathway of the whole Japa syndrome. Well, mine is a message of goodwill. I don't think I can say it better than Professor Howard said it, or Sowore, or even this young man who just, the man in Cyprus, who said it. But all in all, I'm grateful that this has been done for Nowa Omoigui. And I thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Leonard Silk. Thank you very much. We're about to close. There will be 3 other people that I would ask to speak before we close. I don't know if my former boss, Mrs. Ihonvbere Omoigui would like to say something. And then we have General Seriki Bello, who would also give us some closing remarks. And then we'll close with the last closing remarks by Ihonvbere Omoigui. But let me answer Nete's question. Nete asked a question. She said, look, if indeed we do not want people to leave Nigeria, then what are we doing to make Nigeria better? So Nete, here's what I'll say to you in answer to your question. The reality is that Nigeria can only become better if a majority of Nigerians, and when I say majority, I mean more Nigerians than currently, are making efforts to make the country better. Yes, it starts from government because, government are the ones that have the money. They're the ones that can fix the roads. They're the ones that can provide water. They're the ones that can fix the hospitals. Nete, you go to the same school with my kids, and your mommy and I, we pay a lot of money for you to go to school. But in my own time, I went to school for free. I didn't pay anything. And so it would have been easier for me when I finished school then to feel that I owe Nigeria something, that I have to pay Nigeria back. So this is the problem we're having, that, a lot of Nigerians don't believe that government has taken care of them. The way your mommy takes care of you, she buys your school uniform, she feeds you, she buys your toys, she takes you for holidays. A lot of Nigerians don't feel that government behaves to them as though they were their parents, because government is supposed to be our parents. So a lot of Nigerians don't feel that love from government. And so because they don't feel that love from government, they feel that, look, they should go somewhere else where they believe they'll get that love. Sometimes when I scold my son, he say, I'm leaving my house, I'm leaving this house. I'm going to another house. And I always tell him, even if you go to another house, the daddy in that house will still beat you if you are naughty. But the truth is that what needs to happen, Nete, is that people of Nigeria would select good government. And I'm not saying this because your mom is here, but I worked with your mom. And when we worked, in fact, today, I don't know, there's a platform we have for the finance bill. And there's a man called Osita Chidoka. He posted something online about the people that he gave work or jobs when he was in the road safety. And he said he didn't know these people, he just gave them work. And when he was traveling in the airport, they would come to him and meet him and say, oh, you gave us work. And somebody posted, your mom knows the person, his name is Dr. Makabani, and said, oh, we did a lot of that during our time in FIRS. And I then replied him. And I said, when your mom was heading FIRS, people resumed in FIRS. People got big jobs in FIRS. They didn't even know that they were getting those big jobs. Like a director is just like second in command in the office. People resumed in the office as directors. They didn't even know that that was the job that your mom had given them. And your mom didn't know them. So you see, if more and more people can do those kind of things, then Nigeria will become better. People don't have to run away from Nigeria. And we're also hoping that people like you, Nete, when you grow up, you have patriotism, you love Nigeria, and you'll be able to fix Nigeria. And maybe, Nete, you'll be the first female president of Nigeria one day, and you can fix Nigeria. But it is a challenge for everyone here when a child, expresses this sentiment that what can be done to fix this country. I think it's a challenge for each and every one of us to take it to heart that we must leave a better country for the young ones than we have met and inherited from, I don't know, Professor Oleshenka called it the wasted generation, but I hope that when the time comes, one day, we'll be able to look back and say we've left a better nation for the ones who are coming for us, after us, rather, for our kids. So I'd quickly like to ask Ms. Omoigui Okaru if she has anything to share with us. I know that Nowa was a very close sibling of hers. I've met her and him. I've seen them interact. I first met him in person in 2000 and I think, was it 10 or 11 when we went for Daddy's 80th birthday. Soma, please speak to us. I wouldn't dare moderate your time, but I know you'll speak to us very quickly so that we can close.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you very much, Michael. And thank you everyone for joining. Thank you all the speakers. A special acknowledgement to my elder brother, Dr. Sota as well, and Ewosa, who is also on the call. I think, first of all, just in summary, Nowa will have been in the forefront of writing these kinds of articles around Japa or any topical issue around Nigeria, and very heated debates. He took a particular interest in military history, but he really was a researcher as to root causes, a researcher to make sure this awareness that Emmanuel Ribobo is talking about, it will get to the bottom of issues, and actually posts his articles online for anyone who cared, to understand. So it's an honor to be able, for us to be able as a family to honor him every year. On this particular topic, I think I'll just latch onto this last issue, because the truth of it is that some of us have spent quite a lot of years in Nigeria trying to do one thing or the other to build the country. And it does get a bit tiring in the sense that you don't see the country move as rapidly as it should. And one of the reflections I've had over time is the answer of why. What is it that, for those that have tried, because some have tried, we have to give it to them. Today is also the anniversary of my boss, Dick Kramer. He died on this particular day. It's also the anniversary of Isa Harrison, who was like the first African or Nigerian managing partner of Pricewaterhouse. So three of them, interestingly, died on the same day, contributed to this country. And I know that before Dick left, he was always saying, don't give up, in spite of the fact that he had spent years here. And I think that's the spirit. And just as been said, we're going to have people leave, and some of the people leave will come back. But the reality is what you've also said, Michael. We need a critical mass. We need a critical mass who have what Dick would call a missionary zeal. You are here not because you know you're going to get comfort. You're here not because you know you're going to get security. You're here not because you're going to get water supply. Even when you have borehole, sometimes because of the way the building plan goes, you have to build another borehole. So you're here not because you're going to get those comforts, but you're here because you believe that it takes a critical mass to change a country. And when we say government, we assume that government is a human being. Government is not a person. It takes all of us who want to make change happen, go into government. And that's where the missionary zeal comes in. Being in government, if you want change, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. But we must go in there. It can't change without it. If you have people who believe in a policy and are not in government, you will not have that policy. If you have people who have the skill for execution and are on the outside, waiting for others who don't have the skill to be on the inside, it won't happen. So it's us, but it's a critical mass. We recognize that some of us may not be able to do it because of our unique circumstances. That's true. But those who can, let's encourage those who do. Sometimes I also find that being in government, people hardly realize the amount of work that is required to be done. I know when I was in government, and as soon as I left, I was so exhausted, completely exhausted. And I said to myself, I won't go through this again. But the beauty of it, to be quite honest, was 10 years after, till tomorrow, just like you rightly said, people actually acknowledge. And let me give an example. I'm just been elected co-chair of a state governor-elect who is putting a transition council in place. And there were some house members in the team. And somebody said, when they saw me on the team, they said, this madam, you suffered also. That she was not listening. She was not giving them what they wanted. So I don't know who asked him that, okay, so why are you still acknowledging her? I said, my brother, we know we were doing all the things we were doing, but honestly, at the back of our minds, we knew that it was for the betterment of Nigeria. So I think we should just be persistent and consistent. People will turn. People will believe, but it's going to be tough. It's going to require a lot of personal sacrifice. And I don't think we should even underestimate the level of personal sacrifice that would be required. But thank you very much for all that has been said. And God bless everyone.
Thank you so much, Ma. Somebody in the chat group has said that you approved a training program for 3 of them that you barely knew. And I think I can speak to that. Several times we would have opportunities for travel. Of course, I was a young bachelor then, I would want to travel. But my boss would say, call up somebody from the tax office in Ado-Ekiti. Ask the tax controller in Osisioma, who is his best staff. Of course, as a young 30-something-year-old, I wasn't happy because I wanted to go to Europe. But I think it just shows that at the end of the day, if we can think more of the country and the interest of the greater good of Nigerians, like Jeremy Bentham will say, the greatest good for the greatest number of people, then maybe Nigeria will begin to turn. And you're right, man. Government is not a person. It is actually a conglomeration of persons. And there's a saying that I've learned recently, when people say that government is not doing well, the question you ask is, who is government? It is you and I that ultimately become governors, House of Reps members, senators, presidents. So it's nobody, it's us, the next door neighbor, the man on the street who competes or contests for a role and becomes president is you and I. The presidents don't fall from the sky. The governors are not immigrants, or they're not foreigners, rather. They are Nigerians like you and I. So we pray that God will give us the grace. Sorry, I speak like a Nigerian when we revert to God, but who else do we revert to? We pray that God will give our leaders the grace. He will give them the vision and the wisdom to begin to do more good for Nigeria than harm. At this stage, I'll quickly call on General Sekiyaki Bello to say something before Ehosa will give us the closing remarks and vote of thanks. General, sir.
Thank you very much, Mike. Well done, well done, well done. Just to give some information that we had wanted some of Nowa's ebooks to be launched today. Unfortunately, they are not yet ready. But to inform all the participants that the ebooks will soon be ready and they will be notified and they can get them through the e-system. As well as the hard copies will also be ready, in the later part of the year, and they will as well be notified about that. I just want to say one or two things about the topic of today. I don't think there would have been any topic that would have gladdened Nowa's heart than what was discussed today. I was just imagining to say Nowa was alive to be a participant in this kind of gathering. We would have had a lot of facts, a lot of real facts that will really assist this country. Besides, to say that we in the military, we always believe that with every challenge, there is an opportunity. Now, with the challenge of brain drain, what are the possible opportunities for Nigeria to come up with this? There are many I can think of, but I know the time will not allow us to discuss some of these issues. And I will finally want to mention all that Dr. Sota has said. He has said it very, very well. But I will want to go down beside the problem of corruption, impunity, and many others. How do we stop it? Where did we get it wrong as a nation? I believe that at a point, I start thinking that could it be in our DNA that we're not doing well? But I believe that moral and ethics, everybody, that's families and many other things, have a role to play for us to reverse the situation. No matter how well we make laws, no matter how well we do things, if it doesn't start from childhood, from the day you are born, they will not get it right. But there are many, many things wrong with our families and our family values in Nigeria today. Finally, I just want to also tell you that I was in Lebanon one time, and I was informed that there are more Lebanese outside than inside the country. And I also want to share what many of us here have witnessed during the World Cup that took place in Qatar. Morocco was able to reach where it was. And some of the issues was, how were they able to? And it came out that Morocco has contact with all its diasporans, wherever they are, most especially in whatever field they are doing well. The government is with them, and they will not play for those countries, they will play for Morocco. So how can we keep the patriotism of Nigeria inside Nigerians, wherever they may be, so that even if you spend 30 years, but you always think of Nigeria wherever you are? There are many food for thoughts, and I myself have learned a lot. And I think we have done honor to Nowa by the grace of God. Thank you very much, and God bless everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, General. I think what you said, especially just using football as an example, is very instructive. You're absolutely right. One of the players who has been in the news recently, Achraf Hakimi, he was born and bred in Spain. But when it was time to play for a country, he chose his country of origin, not of birth. So yes, you're absolutely right, General. May that spirit of patriotism reign in our hearts so that Nigerians would always want to come back home to work for their country. Dr. Sota wants to say something before we get the closing remarks from Mr. Ehosa. So, Doctor, sir.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, General S.Y. Bello. We're a very close friend.
Doctor, was this picture taken yesterday?
A few years ago. But yeah, you've been a very close friend of my brother Nowa. He loved you. I know you loved him too. And so I'm so glad to see you here.
and being a part of the effort to memorialize his legacy. But I will respond to what Nete Okaro said, why can't we make our country better? And also what my sister Ifweko said, that government is not a person. Well, government is made of people. And human beings, wherever they are, they descend to their worst aspects when there are no checks and balances. And that's why you need institutions. Institutions to make people accountable. Institutions for transparency. So I'm calling on this incoming government to create an office of the Inspector General like we have in America. It's not a police. It's a civil institution that audits and verifies every governmental organization, federal, state, and local, and audits it at every aspect of every contract. Because the present system we have now, where you have EFCC and you have all the agencies coming after the theft has already occurred, it's that medicine after death. You need to audit it as it's going on. You need to audit it before the theft occurs, not after it's too late. We need to hold the civil service accountable. We need to hold people accountable. That's the only roadmap for us to succeed. And Mr. Moderator, you said you are 40 years old or slightly above 44.
I'm 44, sir.
44. Okay, so I'm going to change my age limit to anybody under 50. Does not know the Nigeria that we need. Do you know I never knew what a borehole was until I was your age? I never knew what a generator was. We didn't have any generator because we had constant power supply. You know, so you just can't. And what's the cause of all this? Blatant greed, lack of love of country. So we need to make our leaders accountable, or we'll never have any progress. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Before the closing remarks, I would like to say that given the interest that has been generated in this particular topic, but really for me, I think we need to do something much more elaborate. And I understand that, you know, sometimes we try to use technology to make our lives more efficient. We've had people from the US and all of that, but I would like to challenge, you know, the Nowa Centre to say, can we do something physical next year? And I'm volunteering my time next year. If required, I'll be a moderator. And I'm also pledging some support in form of, you know, a donation to the center, because I've also been a beneficiary of, you know, some of the work that Dr. Nowa did. I've read a lot of Nigerian history, especially military history. You know, one of the things with the challenges as I see in Nigeria is that we do not do postmortems. And I come from a family of doctors. My dad is a doctor, my elder brother is a medical doctor, my younger sister is a medical doctor. And I never was good in sciences, but the one thing I was good at, my brother took me to the cadaver room when I was in secondary school, and I just was fascinated with cadavers. And why was I fascinated? Because I liked the idea that after someone had passed, you will take the time to understand why that person passed. And so that concept of postmortems has always been something that I've been fascinated by. And I think in Nigeria, one thing we do not do well is we do not do postmortems. So governments come and they go. If they fail, we never take the time to find out why did they fail. We introduce all sorts of initiatives, Operation Feed the Nation, Green Revolution. They fail, they don't fail, anchor borrowers. We never do a postmortem. Or even if we do the postmortem, we do not implement the findings from the postmortem. So I would advise, or I would recommend to the center that please next year, let us do a more elaborate program. I volunteer to be part of the planning. Let us do a physical program so that we can spend more time. I know that we spent close to 3 hours here today, but I think that these are issues that we could even make it a 2-day program, but I'll leave it to the center to decide. So I'd like to call Mr. Nowa Omoigui to give us the closing remarks and vote of thanks. You're welcome, sir. Are you here, sir? Hello? Okay, I think if Ehosa is not available for the vote of thanks, I would ask Mr. Karu to please give us the vote of thanks and closing remarks.
All right, so thank you very much. I know it's been a long day. I'd like to thank you all, starting with the mass we had in Abuja at 12 noon, and then those who've been able to come to the webinar starting at 8 p.m. Apologies for those who were not able to sign in because there was a limit of 100. So we had some being bumped off, but we're able to at least correct that. But thank you very much. I mean, we still have quite a number of people in spite of the long time. Thank you very much for your time. We hope the lessons of this topic, resonate. We will publish the video for those who missed it, and even for those who want to just go over the issues that have been raised. We will try and get the slides sent to those who requested it. We've made the request, and so that's why we needed that data, so that we send things out to you as may be necessary. The Nowa Centre for Art, History and Medicine is going to start up as a virtual center before we have a physical center, first based in Benin, before we consider looking at branches in Lagos and Abuja. But as a virtual center, we should be able to have access to all the articles of our late brother, but also to be able to access any related research topics in Nigeria and in Africa generally, or even the world. It's interesting that there's no one research point where if you want any topic, anything from any lecture on any related issue, you can actually go to online. So that's one of the things that we're working on as a center. I'd like to thank those who organized this, basically the executive secretary of the center, and also our chair of the advisory board, General Saki Bello. He's always been available. Our late brother was ill for 7 years. General Saki Bello and his friends, some of whom are not here today for various reasons, were there to support him and his entire family. We'd like to say thank you. And as we honor his name and honor his works, we'd like to thank you all for standing for us. This will be an annual event, and hopefully we will do out a poll for the next topic. I will take the challenge from Michael that we should do a physical next time. So that's something we'll step back, and I think that will be a decision for General Saki Bello and the rest of the advisory board to take. So thank you so much. I think in terms of summary, clearly, one of the things is that, even in the best of times, we do have people who want to leave, and we recognize that. But, it will appear that quite a number of people leaving, the state of the country, the leadership of the country, the various difficulties and challenges in leaving the country have contributed to people who would perhaps not have wanted to leave, leaving. And therefore, it's extremely important for us to make our country work. We've also heard that we need to move from irregular migration to regular migration, so that those who want to migrate do it properly. Otherwise, they do go through so many problems and so many challenges. We've also heard about the opportunities that are available for those who've left, and even for those who remain. And we should take whatever challenges that we see as opportunities. We've also heard that even if you do decide to leave and decide to relocate, let's keep those bonds and see what we can do to contribute to having those bonds, remain. And for example, because competence, we've talked of corruption. One of the real challenges people don't realize is the real depth in skills, real huge depth in skills. And so for those who have the skills, well, let's think about how you can still give back if you're out of the country and support the development, of the country. So thank you very much. General Saki Bello also talked about that it's not just about government. it's also at a family level. It's, and sometimes when we look at the educational system and the fact that not everybody has had access to equal opportunities, the reality is that we need to have a baseline of people who they don't just believe, but they believe because they benefited from the system. Very many people have not benefited from the system. And some of those who have not benefited from the system are actually those who are now leading the country. And so the stake in building a better country is not as much as those who actually benefited from the country. So it's a bit complex, and it's important that we realize that there's government role to play, but there's also the role we need to play at the family level. There's a role we need to play in building character. There's a role we need to play in giving access. Right now, over 20 million school children or children are out of school, across the country. And those children will grow to be adults someday. So there's a lot of work to be done. But again, like they say, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. Dr. Sota has recommended that the Office of the Inspector General should be set up. And whatever we can do to put out a communique to give that advice to the incoming government, we will do. And I'd like to add that in addition to having the office, we should have the right person that is populating that office. Because sometimes as we strive to build institutions, it's the leadership of those institutions that also matter in entrenching the institution and in building the institution, and a focus on the systems as well. So, but excellent idea, and we'll put that up in terms of the communique. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you for staying with us, and may God bless you. And we thank God for the memory of our dear brother who's brought us together, and we'll continue to stay together and continue to expand all that we've set out to do. God bless, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Ma. We appreciate your intervention, and we'll take it to heart. Before we close, I'd like to inform participants that there'll be a poll after the session. I think to be sent to your email addresses. I think the Secretariat are in a better position to do that, but please, there'll be a poll. So if you receive an email from the center or from us, please endeavor to respond to that poll. It's been a very wonderful experience with all of you here. I think you may also drop your email addresses in the chat box so that the link to the polls can be sent to you. It's been an interesting 3 hours, and it looks like we've just been here for 3 minutes. May God continue to give Dr. Nowa rest, and may his legacy continue to shine upon us that he's left behind. The truth is that he is a great man, and as attested today by all of the speakers, he has impacted on Nigeria, he has impacted on his adopted country, which was the United States. But more importantly, as the saying goes, to live in the hearts of those who love you is not to die. Yeah, I'm forgetting my Shakespeare, I think it is. But thank you, everyone, for being patient and staying with us. We hope to do this again next year. We thank General Sarki Bello. And like I said, I'll keep tabs. And hopefully by next year, we'll have a more expanded program, and one that can lead to significant impact on the governance of this country. Thank you, everyone. God bless you all. Do have a good night's rest. Thank you.